Good morning. Please turn off your cell phones or use the etiquette feature. We're going to get started now. This hearing is convened in accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended, and is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustments considers applications for minor variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to create new jobs. First off, new lots, pardon me. I'm going to vet the agenda, but we're going to hold those items that are opposed and require a more in-depth hearing. We'll hear those applications that are not opposed initially. So when I call the item on the list, we want to know who the applicant is, and we want to know if there are any neighbors or other persons in opposition, and then we will hold those applications. And proceed with the other ones. Everybody that speaks will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. Come forward to the podium when you're addressing the committee. Hand in your decision request card to the committee staff on my right. Go to the podium, state your name and address. If you have a written submission you read from, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you're done. As I said, you'll have 5 minutes to present your application. Then the opposition will have 5 minutes to present their application. But if there's a lot of opposition, we need spokespersons to speak. We're not going to hear from everybody, and we're going to at the outset of the hearing from the opposition, we're going to determine how many people we're going to hear from. So you better, while discussing the matter, select a spokesperson or two, so long as they don't speak on the same matter, on the same issue. After we hear from all the speakers, we'll take the matter into consideration for decision, and that will mark the end of the discussion. If you don't agree with the decision, you can file an appeal to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or TLAB. If you need more information about TLAB, go to their website or the Committee of Adjustments website. Appeal instructions will be included at the bottom of every decision. To receive a copy of our decision and to be informed of the appeal proceedings, you have to fill out the decision request card. Include your email address on it. Make sure you hand in that form to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer or her staff. We'll have a motion for confirmation of the last meeting's minutes. So moved. Second. All in favor? Meeting's approved. Any declarations of interest on the morning list? No declarations. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have application B4816 TEY, A76816 TEY, and A769 TEY for 276 Forest Hill Road. It's been deemed abandoned. The application was deferred December 7th, 2016 for heritage review, and the property was designated. We've made attempts to contact the applicant, and we've had no response.
All right. So do we have a motion to close the file?
No.
All right, do we have a seconder?
No. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? File is closed.
Thank you.
Are there any other files to be closed?
There's one later on.
Okay, right. All right. Yeah. All right, because it's got a request for a refund, so we'll deal with it when it comes up. Are there any applicants who wish to withdraw their applications at this time? Okay, I'm now going to vet the list. Number 1, 271 Delaware Avenue, applicant. Yes, any opposition? Yes, okay, we're going to hold that one. You can go out in the hallway and discuss the matter. Number 2, 212 Christie Street. Yes, any opposition? No, we will proceed with that. Number 387 Jameson Avenue, applicant. We'll hold that for now. Number 459 Barton Avenue, applicant. Okay, any opposition to Barton? Okay, we'll proceed. Number 5, 486. There's opposition? Where? Oh. All right, we'll hold that one. Number 5, 486 Dufferin Street, applicant. Yes, any opposition? No, we'll proceed. 6, 332 Russell Hill Road, applicant. Yes, any opposition? Okay, we'll hold that one. Number 7, 566 Palmerston Avenue, applicant. Opposition to Palmerston? No, okay. Number 8, 37 Roxborough Street West, applicant. Any opposition? No, okay. 9, 170 Merton Street. Any opposition to Merton Street? Thank you. Number 10, 28 Benson Avenue, applicant. Any opposition to Benson? No. Number 11, 33 Lonsdale Road. All right, any opposition to Lonsdale? No. Okay. Number 12, 181 Dunvegan Road. Yes, any opposition? Number 13, 295 Russell Hill Road. Yes, any opposition? Thank you. 14, 41 Boswell Avenue. Any opposition to that? No. Number 15, 383 Albany Avenue. Any opposition to Albany? Okay. Number 16, 128 Sterling Road. Applicant? Okay. So we'll just proceed with that. 17, 104 O'Hara Avenue. Applicant? Any opposition to that? Oh, okay, we'll just hold it until we see if someone shows up. 18, 1003 Dovercourt Road. Applicant? Any opposition? Okay, we will proceed. We'll start with number 2, 212 Christie Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a front two-story addition with a second-story balcony, a rear two-story addition with a basement walkout, a ground floor deck and second-story balcony, and a third-story addition with front dormers and a rear balcony. The rear detached garage will be demolished and replaced with a rear parking pad. On this, pardon? Are you all together?
They're the neighbors.
So are you opposed to this application? All right, well, we're going to hold that down.
So, okay.
I'm not going to introduce it again. Well, I'm going to check and see if Jameson's here. Number 387, Jameson. No one was here before. Is anybody here for Jameson? Okay, we will move to number 5, 486 Dufferin Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the lawful non-conforming two-story townhouse by reconstructing the front porch, which will project 1.91 meters into the front yard, and including the stairs will be located 1.04 meters from the front lot line, and by constructing a rear basement walkout, which will project 3.36 meters from the main rear wall of the building. On this application, we only have material submitted by the applicant. Your name?
Marisa Boyd. I'm here on behalf of Mark Botticella.
Pardon?
Marisa Boyd. I'm here on behalf of Mark Botticella.
Yes. Can you give us an address, please?
Oh, yes, 486. Oh, you have it?
Oh, she's, okay. do we need a presentation on this?
But I noticed there was a bit of, there's a typo in the requested permission. It says, townhouse that existed prior to passing the zoning bylaw, which does not permit the said AL use. I don't know what AL.
Just a minute, sir. Sir. White-haired gentleman in the black shirt, sweater, could you sit down? Or go out and, don't come back.
Is that supposed to be something or said use? Just delete the AL. Okay, thank you.
So do we have a
No,
motion?
I just have one quick question. I noticed we have some new site plan and anything, nothing's changed since. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so nothing has changed then. I have no questions. Just wanted to confirm that.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no other questions other than the approval of the application, I think it's quite minor and clearly meets the four tests for variance approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 7, 566 Palmerston Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story townhouse by constructing a rear two-story addition and a partial third-floor addition with a rear third-floor deck. And before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, report from Toronto Transit, correspondence in concern from 564 Palmerston, and opposition from 568 Palmerston.
Morning, I'm Jay Smith. I'm the agent for 566 Palmerston. I do have an updated zoning notice I'll hand out.
Just tell us if you're removing something.
Okay, so item 1 and 5 are removed.
Variances 1 and
1 and
5 are
5.
being removed?
That's right. They were previously permitted, and the zoning examiner did not receive a copy of that permit at the time, so they are removed. That's right. Those were for an existing third-story addition that was previously permitted and has been constructed previously. So once we provided the permit to the zoning examiner, she removed those from the requirements.
Can you just quickly tell me, rather than waiting through all this, I didn't see it, what's the existing floor space index? I didn't see that on the plan, so.
0.86. We're adding about 38 square meters.
Okay. And I'd also noticed there's a letter of objection from the neighbor. You know, they state that they feel it's excessive, but then they go on for the balance of their 4-paragraph letter to talk about construction issues, so.
I do have a drawing showing the extent of the extension.
Okay.
So on the one side, we are 1.5 meters past their rear wall, but their deck does extend past our proposed deck, so they are actually longer than we are.
Okay.
And on the other side, we're 1.21 meters
Okay.
past their existing wall.
Yeah, the balance of what they're talking about seems to be construction, which is not
Yes.
mandate, so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the homeowners purchased the home under the understanding that it was in better shape than it was, so it has taken a significant amount of time to bring it to code. It needed all new wiring, new plumbing. It has not been a fun time for the existing homeowner.
Any further questions?
Now, if no one has any further questions, I'm prepared to make a motion of approval of this application as amended with deleting variances 1 and 5. I don't believe there are any conditions. There is a TTC advisory comment on this.
The homeowner has spoken with the TTC already.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Have a seconder?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Number 8, 37 Roxborough Street West. Purpose of this application is to construct a new detached garage with a rooftop deck in the rear yard of the property. On this application, we have before us material submitted by the applicant, support from 9 Gibson, and a six form letters in support from addresses on Roxborough and Gibson. Do we need a presentation on this?
I have a question. I just have a question in terms of the grade on the property.
Yes?
From the plans, and then maybe you can confirm this for me, it looks like the grade slopes down towards the lane, correct? So
There's
it's-
about a 3.5, I don't know meters, there's a 3.5-foot drop between the backyard and the lane.
Okay.
And so the wall that's existing for the garage was not well constructed, and the new wall will be a reinforced wall that an engineer has designed to hold back the grade. So does that answer your question?
It does, but in terms of having a patio on top of a garage, in terms of overlook toward other neighbors, is that an issue because the...
I can show you, I brought some pictures with me, which Teresa told me.
Oh, sir, could you just, are you Mr. Pumple?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Use the overhead? I do note that one of the neighbors wrote in and said that these garages and decks are common in the neighborhood.
Yeah, what I have is,
Little to no impact on the immediate area.
9 Gibson, is that like a budding neighbor?
Yeah.
this is a picture of the garage next door to us at 41 Roxborough, which you approved on the April the 15th of 2015. That's a deck on the top.
Okay.
Okay? And this is a picture of our current garage and deck that we use all the time. That we're, as you can see, our neighbors behind us.
So you currently have a garage with a deck on top?
We do currently have a garage in the deck, and what I'm trying to do is repair the garage because it was built in 1962, and the construction company didn't do the foundations very well, and so it's settling, and I'm an engineer, and when we bought the house, I said, problem.
So that beyond, it looks like the deck of the garage you just showed us, is that correct?
That is correct.
Sort of slatted, and this is sort of your view from your deck?
That is correct.
What about the other side? What about?
They also have a garage with a peak roof, and they just got approved from this committee in January, I think it was, to extend their back of their house, but they're not going to put a deck on their garage because they have a peaked roof on the garage, which is higher than our garage. And then going forward, I have a series of photos on my phone, but virtually everyone going forward has a deck on the roof of their garage.
Because you have small yards, small backyards?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions, or does somebody have a motion?
No, I have a motion, Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues have questions. I'd like to move approval of the application. I believe it's minor and it's in the public interest that you repair the garage. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Number 9, 170 Merton Street. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing 2.5-story building from office use to an educational use, school and daycare. We have before us on this application a material submitted by the applicant and staff reports from engineering and tree protection. I believe that there's Transportation wants a deferral, asking for a deferral?
Yeah, and it's been brought to our attention as of this morning, even up to yesterday when we checked for any last-minute notes. We did not discover any
Can we
of
get
these.
your name and?
Oh, my name is Greg Hermonday, and I'm Director of Churchill Lands United. And I have with me all my supporting members, Scott Shields, architect, who actually made the application back in August, I believe it was. And we've approached the committee and provided as much information up front as of, I think last time we submitted was October 12th of 2018. So to see this is a little bit of a surprise, but nothing that we can't work through. I would request that it not be a deferral because we're looking at a September 2019 opening. And we've been at this since August of 2018. And I have approached all of the neighbors well in advance of being the purchase. We don't have any objections. I think everybody in the neighborhoods sees the value of the school being there.
So you've seen the staff report, and I asked, in the event that we don't defer it, there's two conditions.
Sure.
You retain a transportation consultant,
Yes.
and you revise your plans with
Accordingly.
respect to parking. Is that,
If there's, yeah, I think that's more than suitable. For us, we're very confident that the plans we have are fairly accurate and reflect what needs to be there. And I'm sure the consultant will either agree or have some kind of recommendations that we can adjust
Do
accordingly.
you currently have a transportation consultant, or this would generate hiring a consultant?
This would generate hiring the consultant, and we're happy to engage them on board as quickly as possible. What we don't want to do is be in a situation where we're deferring, to be honest. It's something that could have been brought to our attention back in October, November of last year. We would happily and gladly oblige in the same ways we're doing right now.
all right, does anybody have any other?
So it looks like you're seeking to reduce the 18 you have 18
Yes.
parking spots, but you're reducing it to 9.
Yes, and we have some information that would support that as to why it would be applicable. And remember,
So the area where the balance of the 9 currently are, what does that mean?
it'll end up
Is that
being a
for the
playground.
drop-off, or-
It'll be drop-off and playground area,
Okay.
correct.
But in any event, you're going to get a transportation study.
Sure, and we've done our own study to give us at least some kind of,
That's the problem. So, yeah, so in my view, I see this as an issue because you're asking for a variance of 9 parking spaces, and typically when we see these kind of things, in terms of school uses or daycares, parking justification usually is required for such a, in my view, for such a large variance for parking. There is often issues about drop-off, pickup, traffic flow on the site, that kind of thing. And if we proceed and perhaps even impose the condition requested by transportation, and your parking justification comes back not in favor, you're going to be back here for another variance perhaps, or it may need to be changed. So I personally, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions, but in my view, I would like to see the deferral happen in this situation, so we have all the information before us to properly make a decision, particularly since we're making a decision on the parking variance.
can I present, would it be possible to present some information that we've already done as groundwork, as due diligence from our end? Because there's no point jumping into an investment of this size and nature and getting the community all excited and happy about what's going on without doing some groundwork. We do have some information from a traffic and at least from a student. The nature of the students and the nature of the school that we're putting in there is slightly different than what you're used to in Toronto. Most of this is local, and most of the people that will actually be attending are literally walking distance.
No, I guess Merton is a sort of a commercial, it's not like it's a residential street, it's sort of, I know, well acquainted with Merton, so you have office buildings and large type uses. So the parking is in the rear, correct?
Parking is in the rear in a very, very narrow laneway to begin with.
Mr. Chairman, I share my colleagues' concern about parking and drop-off. We have another daycare that we're dealing with today, and that's exactly the same issue. If you want to proceed with the information you've got, my assumption is you believe that that's a convincing and full argument, because I would then not be in favor of a deferral, but if I was not convinced, I would recommend a refusal.
Well, I see these conditions that the transportation wants to attach, dealing with the issue of parking, and I think that if it's, that if we deal with this variance for 9 parking spaces, that perhaps we can make it conditional on the results of the report and negotiations with transportation, rather than defer it or hold you or turn you down.
It is a risk. It is a risk that I'm happy to take on, as Madam Chair, you mentioned, it could be coming back, and I'm happy to do that. I'd prefer that route than the deferral or presenting any insufficient information that would result in a refusal.
So,
And,
yeah.
you're going to be dealing with the experts at transportation.
Correct.
Better than we are, so I think that if we can do a resolution, a motion
Yeah.
conditional on this, and particularly with respect to variance number 2, that would serve our purpose.
Yeah, I would point out that it does say that it's, would be to the satisfaction of the General Manager of Transportation Services, so I agree with the chair. I wouldn't want to hold you up, and there doesn't seem to be any opposition different than the other application we have for a daycare, which is in a residential neighborhood. Merton Street is not the same character of a street, so I would be inclined to hear from you, and if it's acceptable and seems to us, and then you were content with that condition, subject to the satisfaction.
That's fine.
So it's two, and so I don't know if that's changed, but.
And again, one of the reasons why it's a bit of an awkward situation is only because I heard about this literally this morning, and we checked even yesterday. Had I known about this back in December or November, or even January, we would have certainly engaged it and possibly presented to you all the information you did require as to not waste your time.
We only got it this morning, too.
Yeah.
Does someone have a motion? Or,
I'll bring my motion forward. My motion is for deferral. I think I'd like to have all the information before me before I'm prepared to make a decision.
And I would second the motion.
all in favor?
No, it does. You can't vote. So it does pass because I'm opposed, but you can't create a tie, so the motion does pass then, 2-1, with you abstaining. Yeah, so it's a question of how soon we can get you on, because it is, I believe, creating a hardship from getting this only yesterday. Like you said, you could have complied. But perhaps, given the motion and it's been passed, that perhaps we can get you on, and if you, as quickly as you can deal with that and get that study done, then perhaps you can be put on an agenda. It's supposed to be, the deferral motion is for a maximum of 3 months, but if you're ready before, you can contact staff and try to get on an agenda as soon as possible.
I believe that we need some more language in the deferral motion. What is the purpose of the deferral so that... Yeah, okay. And that once it's met, it should come back as soon as possible. So I'm sure we'll try and get it back as soon as possible. If you can get your transportation study done and deal with transportation, then, you know, I hope that we're not going to hold you up.
Thank you for your time.
Number 10, 28 Benson Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard of the property. We have before us material submitted by the applicant. Your name, sir?
My name is David Riley with SGL Planning. I'm here on behalf of the applicant and the agent.
Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues...
I just have a question about the use of this garage.
Yes.
You know, your main variance is the coverage of the garage and the gross floor area. You're allowed 40 meters, you're going to 77, almost double. And it looks like there's windows. What's the use of this, proposed use of this garage?
It's just going to be for parking to accommodate the cars that the family owns at this dwelling.
Because it looks like there's windows in here and...
Yep.
A window or a sliding...
Not on the side. There's a window facing the house, on the house elevation.
And there are man doors facing the house as well. I think it's to make it appear attractive from the back of the house. And then you have an overhead door as well.
Yes.
Facing the house. And at the back, you have a double door and
And a single door. So it would fit 3 cars,
Yeah.
this garage. I have a little bit of a map that I prepared just to show, because it's hard to tell how big this garage is and proportionally how big are the other garages in terms of lot coverage. So I thought this might help.
Okay.
So what I did was I took an estimated measurement using the Toronto's interactive mapper based on the lot area and the floor plate. Maybe I'll try to zoom this in a little bit.
That's a lot better.
So I just wanted to see for myself and for the benefit of the committee the percentage of lot coverage on the other garages on the property. And so this is a lot that is much wider than many of the other lots on this block. A lot of them are semis. This is a single. A lot of them do have garages. 5 of the, I believe, 13 garages that exist on Benson Avenue are over 18% in lot coverage, ranging up to about 24.5% lot coverage. So in terms of massing and in terms of scale, I do think it fits in with that size. So essentially, it would be similar to the size of the neighboring 2 garages put together. However, that's a semi. So I just wanted to provide that context. I thought that would be helpful.
That's very helpful. If anyone have any further questions? Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application. I don't believe there's any conditions.
All in favor? Yeah, your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Number 11, 33 Lonsdale Road. Purpose of this application is to construct a pair of new semi-detached dwellings with integral garages on the subject lot. We have before us material submitted by the applicant, staff reports from engineering and tree protection. Your name, sir?
Good morning, Ali Shakiri, 326 Shepherd Avenue East. It's proposing a semi-detached house and 3 variances. The variance number 1 is technical. It's just a lot size. Aside that, we're asking to increase the floor area slightly and also slightly increasing the length. We have seen the conditions by the forestry and engineering, and we are fine with those conditions. Other than that, if there is any question, I'd be more than glad to answer.
Is the intention to come back and split this into separate lots, or you're building the 2 semis?
Not at this point. We have discussed that with my client. They don't have the intention to separate. The issue came up with the planning staff. They were actually okay with it, but at this time they didn't wish to proceed with the severance. So
they're going to own
yes,
the lot?
Yes.
So do you have a study showing the frontages of the other lots on this street in the vicinity of this property?
I don't have a study showing the frontage of the other houses on the street, but as you can see on the map provided with the application, the sort of similar type of frontages, and this type of semi-detached houses are very common on that street, so it's no different than basically.
Can you clarify that on the south side of Benson? Because I have a concern that, Lonsdale, sorry. I have a difficulty with the width of these residential units. They're about 18 feet in width, right? Something like that. And from the location map, it appears that all of the buildings on the south side of Lonsdale are considerably larger than that in width. So whether you sever it or not, it seems to me you're establishing a precedent for a house width that's much narrower than what exists on the street. Can you clarify if there are exceptions to that, or have I got the information incorrect?
Sure. The lots on the south side, on the south street, are considerably shorter than the lots on Lonsdale, almost like half that length. So these houses are going to be fairly away from those houses. Speaking of the...
I was referring to the houses on the south side of Lonsdale. The buildings all appear to be substantially wider than the houses that you're talking. No, on
the same side of the street as
Lonsdale,
yours.
just here. This is Lonsdale. That's you. I'm comparing you to these houses.
So on the same street, if you go a little bit further to the east, you can see these semi-detached houses here, here, here. And basically, these type of houses with the same, or maybe even a the smaller frontages are very, very common on that street. That's why I think the planning didn't have any objection on it.
Yeah, Mr. Shakiri, though, what's the width of the two that you're showing us, the lot width? Because,
These two are identical to the subject lot.
right, because you're looking to basically have lot frontage of 12.2 meters, right? Which means you'd have 6.1 on each. So it's going to appear to, even though it's on one lot, it's going to look on the street, and perhaps we'll come back for a severance, as the development engineering said. At that point, it'll look like it's a 6-meter lot. So I just want to know what the width of those are. It looks like
The ones I outlined are identical width, and you can see on your own
those
map.
are two lots, and each of them have a pair of
Yeah.
semis on it.
Yes, they have semis on it.
The width of those lots are the same as the width of
The same, identical to this lot. I mean, I would have actually brought more study if I thought, we thought that was very obvious that this is very, very precedented in the area, so was the planning. Actually, they were actually asking us to also put an application to sever, which wasn't the case. My client didn't want to do the severance at this point, and they'd have no intention, as far as I know, to sever the lot. And
You are
this is
doing
this is
separate servicing, correct?
yes, the engineering has proposed actually in anticipation that somebody might down the road wish to sever these lots, just bring two services. But we didn't have any intention of making the severance, although it was an acceptable proposal from the planning point of view.
What's on the lot now?
It's one single house.
Okay, which will need to be demolished.
And the zoning, by the way, allows 2 units on one lot for this property. So that's why you don't see that variance. So the zoning, I believe it allows up to 3 maybe, and what 2 for sure is not a variance.
And the lots you pointed out, there's only 2 of them, but that have the semis, are those are existing, are they?
Yeah, those are existing.
They're not, no, sorry, I'm not saying it correctly. Were they infills?
I believe so.
They're new, no, they're new semis, newer?
They are,
Houses?
they are, I would guess, because I didn't even study it, but I think they're about like 15 or 20 years old. Yeah.
I will point out that you're not, you're not pushing the envelope. You're only slightly have a depth variance of less than a meter, and you're only over at 0.66 coverage. It's not like you're coming here and pushing the envelope on what you're proposing.
That's correct, because usually it's
The only
severance
issue is the
application,
lot frontage issue.
which is existing, by the way.
Yeah.
If nobody has any further questions, do we have a motion?
Nothing from planning, nothing from area residents. Okay, does anyone have any further questions?
No further questions.
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion of approval of the application, although the lot frontage is of some concern. I think we've heard from the applicant that it's sort of, there's others on Lonsdale, and he's not pushing the envelope for his depth and his floor space index. There are no other variances, well, there's no side yard variances, so he's respecting that. So I would move approval of the application.
Subject to the staff report.
That's correct, the
Condition.
development engineering, for sure, yes. Thank you.
And-
I think, is there a tree?
forest-
There's a
2 and
forestry
3.
2 and 3, thank you.
All right, do we have a seconder?
Mr. Chairman, I have some reservations about the width of the dwelling units and its impact on the area, but as the applicant has indicated, there are properties in the vicinity that are a mimic of what he's proposing, and on that basis and the fact that he's not therefore creating a precedent, I'm prepared to second the motion.
All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 12, 181 Dunvegan Road. In this application, the purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition and by raising the existing rear deck that we have before us. Material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, and 5 form letters in support. Your name, sir?
Yes, good morning. My name is Thomas Marzato. I'm the agent for the owner.
Do we need a presentation?
I have a question. Mr. Manzato, unless I've missed something, there are some letters of support, but what is glaringly missing, in my view, is one from 183, which is right next door. Can you tell us?
Well, the owner contacted all the owners immediately, so I'm not sure if he got any comments from the neighbor.
So you didn't get any comments from them?
No, no,
They voiced any concern to you?
no, not that I know of, no.
Sir, do you know what the existing floor space index? I assume you're already over. It's a rather modest one-story addition here, so you're permitted 0.35 and you're looking to go to 0.48.
Yes,
So I assume you're already over that.
yes. Well, I'd like to say the addition in the back is well set back from the neighbors, the rear and both sides, so we, and also the addition is built on top of an existing deck. So we're not really increasing the envelope of the building, actually.
Okay. But do you have that statistic as to what you're currently at?
Yes, hold on a second, please. The existing lot coverage is 22.6.
Sorry?
22.6%.
22.6.
That's coverage. You add
No.
FSI, right?
No, yeah, I have to, the FSI where you're seeking to go from 0.35 permitted to 0.48.
Yeah.
So,
The addition is 365 square feet, about 33.5 square meters.
okay, so you're already substantially over. Yeah. Okay. It's a rather modest addition here, and I would, if there's no further questions, I would move approval of the application, and there doesn't appear to be any conditions.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Number 13, 295 Russell Hill Road. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear ground floor addition. We have before us material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, and a 4-signature petition in support. Your name, sir?
Chairman, my name is Werner Cram. I'm the agent for Margaret Rundle, the owner of the property. And what we're here for today is ask permission to install a 1-story addition over the existing patio in the backyard. I'll put a picture up there for you to have a look at. That existing structure, if you look down there, you can see the bay window, living space in the basement. And if you look to the right, see the white marks, the whole brick is deteriorating. There's a massive amount of water damage on the patio that was built in 2004. That's one reason for the proposed addition. Plus, Mrs. Rundle is substantial redevelopment of the property and reinvestment to improve some of the amenities that she would like in the house. As you can see there, that has to be repaired. And it is also leaking in the back wall of the house behind the patio, up against the house wall and the basement. Right now, the basement is gutted because of the water damage. The drywall and everything had to be removed. So she always wanted, we're in the conservatory business. She always wanted additions, so that's what we're proposing. And we're following the profile of that existing patio. All right? And that's what we're proposing to go up in there. We will comply to all the building codes as unprotected openings for the neighbors. The setbacks are existing. The lot coverage and the length goes to that bay window on the bottom, not the bay, the little bow window that sticks out. But that is 2 feet back from the main wall of the addition we're putting in. So there's 2 feet added, which really isn't living space for the, and we're added to the length of the building. Right. Yeah, that bows out past that main wall up above it. So there's 2 feet of length that is in, but it's not a building length. It's an existing condition there. As for, so that addresses length. As we go to variance number 3, I don't know whether it's in the committee's power, but the variance for the south side yard back, which they have, is 1.13. Even on my application, I had 1.09. I don't know whether you can change that to make that change now. If not, we'll accept that. But there's a little pier on that side that sticks out more than the house wall. We're not going.
Asking that change to 1.09?
Yes, if it's possible, for the south setback. If not, we'll live with that.
Yeah.
It just means we have to shave some of the more brick off.
We can't increase it, I guess, without notification? Yeah.
Yeah. If that's not possible.
0.04 of a meter, right?
Yeah.
That's the distance from the south lot line, correct?
Yes. It's a good existing condition. If you look on there, on the picture to the left of that tree, there's that pier that goes up. Well, that sticks out past the lower wall a bit. And that's all it is. I remember a couple of years ago, we had to come back because of a condition like that to the committee, so I don't look forward to that.
The only difficulty is if anyone that has read the notice believes that the distance would be 1.13, and you're providing a smaller setback, and one could argue that there may be someone who would object.
No, I agree. Well,
so if it was to remain at 1.13, it's a pillar that you're adding or a pillar that's existing?
Pillar that's existing.
So you have a real problem if this doesn't change.
That's the issue. That's the issue. We would have to knock it all the way down. We
can just. The question is the new construction in line with the pillar? You're basically going over the patio, where the patio is basically.
Right.
Is a template for where you're building, and you're building up from there.
Right. But if
Where's the column that you're talking about?
Even if you look at the site plan that you have, Kevin, site plan. No, the other one here. No, the site plan here. This one here. We can deal with it if it's very important, but I know whether you can see it on the left corner there.
I know you have the consent of both adjacent neighbors, which is good.
Yes. Where am I here? Right here. Yeah. Right on this corner here. See that there? There's that little square that jogs out.
Okay, and you're not going over that.
Sorry? No. Right. We're going over that. We're not going over that little jog out. We're going straight.
New construction is located 1.1.
Oh, yes, I agree with that. Yes, but what has happened before is we have done that, and then the building inspector says no, because now you're tying everything together vertically, that this is now the setback. It was in the application, though, and everything, and it was also in the zoning. It's on the site plan there, that measurement. He just missed it. The reason why I didn't at that point, question it. It took me 6 months to get the zoning review, and I was just happy to get it. So I said, I'll take it. I didn't want to open up anything else because of the long, arduous time that we had to get it. You know, it was very long. So that's the reason. If you can't do it, we'll chisel it down to what we require, but it's something we prefer not to do. That's all. And as last, I guess, for some of the coverage, I believe the coverage issue is appropriate for this area. There are a lot of houses. Even the neighbor to the north is a larger property, I believe. So I think it's an appropriate development for the neighborhood. Any questions?
So could we solve your problem with respect to variance number 3 by saying that you build in accordance with the plans?
Yes, on top of the existing. That would cover it. I believe I'd have an argument in that sense then, right?
If you miss it,
Yeah, if it's not, yeah.
that's not reasonable. Okay.
If it's not doable, we,
The advice we're getting is it's unlikely to be
Yeah.
a problem.
Okay.
Changing it is likely to be a problem because
okay.
we went public with a different.
Right. No, then the status quo is fine then. We'll deal with it.
Would it help to make it be built substantially in accordance? Would that perhaps?
Not really, because it doesn't really, what
doesn't
you're
jive
building
with the
doesn't deal
variance,
with that
right.
column.
Yeah.
You can leave.
Or
Have it.
The site plan only?
Well, I think the easiest thing would sound like just leave it. Yeah, leave it the way it is, and we'll deal with it.
In that I don't believe it will hurt you, Mr. Chairman, unless my colleagues have any questions, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 2, and I will add a condition that the construction is to be substantially in accordance with the drawings submitted to the Committee of Adjustment this date, or that the Committee of Adjustment had before it this date. And that may help, because
Okay, all right.
the problem is, well, all right, that's fine. It's substantially in accordance with the site plan,
Yeah.
it's fine then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to second your motion.
All in favor? Have
Thank
your
you.
approval, sir.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck.
you very much.
Number 1441 Boswell Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear second-story addition, rear basement addition, and rear two-story addition. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Heritage Preservation, correspondence from Planning, correspondence in support from 36 Elgin Avenue, and opposition from residents, on behalf of residents at 45 Boswell Avenue, and two letters from 45 Boswell Avenue in opposition.
I think it's mainly construction-related concerns.
Yes, it appears that way.
Would you like me to proceed, sir? Chair? Mr. Chair, would you like me to proceed?
I don't think, I just want to check and see if we need a presentation. It does.
All right.
Appears to be relatively minor. Do we need a presentation? Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Have you seen the objections?
I have, sir, and in fact, we've been dealing with that individual for several months now. And through you, I can comment that Mr. Clark is entirely 100% correct. It has only to do with construction. And I hope that your staff has been able to put before you the pre-filed material. If not, I have it up. I have copies to hand you, but it's what's up on the screen. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, why don't I just give you copies? I don't see that you have them. As you can see, 45 Boswell is to the right of the drawing. If you are putting, I'm sorry, to the left if you want to put north up. And the extension that is being complained about, thank you, in this location is already permitted and is under construction.
Okay.
So that the bay window and the extension of the below grade in blue is well beyond and abuts only the rear yard. It's been a difficult process. Allow me to leave it there.
I'll note that the neighbor behind who's most affected, arguably, it's a rear addition, rear second story, not a two-story, but a second-story addition at 36 Elgin is in support, so.
Just so.
I think they're sort of the ones who would be most affected, and like I said, at 45 Boswell, looks like it's mainly construction and engineering-related issues they're raising, which is.
Only above-grade construction that in fact is subject to this variance request.
Is the red, yes, which is joining two existing, two permitted bay windows and providing a foundation for them.
Okay.
And it's exactly 0.75 meters deep.
Any further questions, or do we have a motion?
Ms. Pepino, I assume you're aware of the staff condition that would be built substantially in accordance with the.
Yes, I'm aware of that supportive staff report, and the condition is acceptable.
Okay, so that would be my motion, to approve the application subject to the staff condition that the altered two-story dwelling be constructed substantially in accordance with the plans prepared by drawing room architect and received by committee on January the 18th.
All in favor? Have your opinion.
Thank you.
Number 15, 383 Albany Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story townhouse dwelling by constructing a rear third-story addition, a rear ground floor addition, and a rear ground floor deck. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant. Your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Wanda Ely, and I'm here representing the owners who are also present.
Okay, perhaps you could tell us a little about this.
Absolutely. My clients are a couple with two young children who bought the house before having children, and their needs are for space are growing. So I think what they're proposing is quite minor, actually. We are the only place where we're changing the footprint of the building is where there is actually already an existing back one-story addition. It's existing staircase down to the basement. To make that basement stair a proper stair to code, we needed to increase its depth by just under 2 feet and its width by about a foot only. I can show you on the site plan. This here dotted line here is an addition, a one-story addition that already exists, and this slightly larger shaded line is the footprint of the new one-story addition that will house a In order to use the third floor, they are taking an attic and just popping up a dormer. So there's actually no change in footprint, even though because the lots are quite small, the increase in GFI seems, or square floor index.
Do you know what you're at now? You're seeking to go from 1 times coverage.
We're already above now as existing, so it would be impossible to.
How much
Yeah.
you're adding here? And yeah, it's very, very small lot. That's why I guess
Yes,
you're
it's
zero landscape, you're 0% landscape.
And the rear deck is already existing exactly as is. We've been trying to be, they are 4 of 4 adjoining houses, row houses. We've been trying to be very mindful of not changing the front exterior look at all.
That was my point. There are no other third stories, and basically you're reusing the attic space.
That's right.
The majority of your addition is at the back.
Correct.
There's a portion that protrudes above the ridge of the roof by about
2 feet at most, but we have been mindful to go at the same projection.
so that it continues.
Yes, and in fact, if I could show you a sketch. This is the existing front of the house, and really it's this little corner projection that I think would be barely perceivable. Because we're on a hill, these houses to the north already have a higher roof. So it's, sorry, I'll leave it there in case anyone has any questions, but I think it's rather inconspicuous. The owners have spoken to everybody attached to them. And they have spoken to neighbors across the street that would be looking at the house and neighbors behind them. And I don't think anybody will be affected by shadows or privacy because of the massing of the addition.
So in terms of how much you're going up, you were about to give us that information in terms of the FSI, GFA. You said it was a small, it looks like a very small.
It's a very small addition.
Further out on the ground floor, popping up the third floor, and I give you credit for being mindful of the neighbors.
Thank you. Box, yeah.
Yeah, which we see often, but you're already well over, I imagine, because the FSI.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. We've also, after getting our zoning review, taken the time to speak with a city planner here, I believe her name was Catherine Young, to see if she had any objections or any advice, and she felt that it was all very minor and didn't.
No communication.
Anybody have any questions? That was a very good presentation, so thank you for that. And as well, I'm happy to bring a motion forward for approval of the application. I'm satisfied that these additions are minor, while on paper they may look
Yes.
larger because of the SI.
Yes.
I'm satisfied that really you're not adding that much floor space.
No, we're not.
I commend that in terms of the third floor addition, you're trying to be mindful of your attached neighbors, and you're not doing a box all the way across. So happy to bring forward a motion for approval without any conditions.
Okay, I'm happy to second Ms. Valentini's motion for approval.
Thank you very much.
Favor? Have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say. Okay, number 16, 128 Sterling Road. This is a request to withdraw. And with respect, there's a request for a partial refund as well. So we have a motion with respect to this.
Chair, if there's no other questions or comments, I'd move the application be closed and the half of the fee be refunded to the applicant.
Motion.
All in favor? Motion passes. Number 17, I don't believe that was held because there was opposition, was held because nobody was here. 104 O'Hara, are you for that? Is there any you weren't here before, is that correct? Yes, okay. Is there any opposition to number 17104 O'Hara Avenue? No? Okay, please come forward. Oh, yeah. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition with a ground floor deck and a second-story balcony. And we have before us material submitted by the applicant. Your name, please.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Vandertoon. I'm the agent for the owner, who is also here today, Mr. Hans Engel.
Have you seen the report from the planning department recommending an addition of approval?
Yes, I have.
Do we have a report?
I don't see a report. Are you in the right one, Carl? No.
I have the examiner's notice here.
Sorry.
No.
Problem with getting things too late, sorry.
So could you tell us what the existing depth of the building is?
The existing depth is 13.8 meters. And we are proposing to add an additional 6.7 meters for a total length of 20.55 meters, which is we believe, a minor variance to the bylaw.
Spoken to we don't have any input from the neighbors.
We have spoken to both immediate neighbors, yes, and we have letters with us today. The owner has brought his letters, and there was no objection.
Okay, could you let us have those letters, please?
It's very skinny lot. It's a very skinny lot. But it's quite a big extension. 102 and 106.
You're right, it is a very thin lot, and the house currently only has 2 bedrooms. The owners wish to add a 3rd bedroom and also a family space at the rear of the kitchen.
Yes. Just for the record, we have received 2 letters from the applicant of approval, 102 O'Hara Avenue, 106 O'Hara Avenue, the adjoining or abutting landowners. And so we'll file that. So if there are no further questions, does someone have a motion?
One side of a semi. Yeah, you're going substantially beyond the neighbor and the other side of the semi at 102, but they're in support.
Yes.
Perhaps they're going to do the same thing?
And also, I just would like to point out that the neighbor immediately north, who would be most affected by light access, their house actually goes beyond the proposed addition.
106.
Yes,
yeah.
at 106, yes.
Yeah, 102 is in support. I see that there's impact, but they're in support. Likely they're going to.
Yeah, these are more construction-related issues, which certainly we will address that with the party wall agreement.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, I would move approval of the application, and there are no conditions, no urban forestry or planning conditions being requested.
I'm going to second it. Initially, given the depth variance on paper, it looks like, it could be quite a significant change, but you are similar in depth to the neighbor at 106. And, the other variances aren't outrageous in terms of, in particular, floor space index. It's not like you're going hugely over for an addition that deep. So on that basis, I'm happy to support the approval, a motion for approval.
favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 18, 100 Dovercourt Road. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear ground floor addition with basement. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant and a report from planning. Your name, sir?
Good morning. My name is Jose Carrero. I'm here representing my parents, who are the homeowners of the property.
Okay, so again, we have a substantial variance request with respect to the building depth. How deep is the property at this now?
Existing, I'd have to look at it. I only have feet from the survey, but it's about 50 feet or 55 feet, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at the existing survey.
Are you removing an addition that's currently there? or-
Sorry?
I'm just looking at the staff report, and it says they do not object to the proposed variances as the addition is 1 story in height, which, you know, that's a mitigating impact, and it's shorter than the existing dwelling. I'm just wondering what
I
that.
don't know what they mean by that, to be honest
Okay,
with you.
there's not an existing addition? Is there an existing addition you're taking down?
No, there is a small veranda, excuse me. There is a small veranda at the back. It was dilapidated, falling apart, so all that would be coming down, and the basement as well. That small portion will be coming down as well. It'll be just a little bit bigger.
But it doesn't count in the
Doesn't make
depth,
sense, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think planning, but they point out as well, there's no overlook, it's one story. So although planning seems to be a little offside in what they're saying here, that what they seem to be implying in their report is that what you're building is less depth than what's there currently.
No, it's a little bit bigger than what's currently there.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, I'll move approval of the application with no conditions. Oh, actually, to be built substantially in accordance. Yeah.
Sorry? I have. They just want a second-story addition to go beyond what's there right now.
And they're tying it to your ground floor, your basement plan and ground floor plan, plans A1 and A2 dated October 9th.
Yep, that's fine.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir.
Okay, I just have one quick question. How do I get the building permit? Do I go downstairs and tell them I was approved, or?
Well, yes, there's an appeal period.
So you've got to wait, Nita, how long until he gets his final decision?
20 days? Okay.
And then there's an appeal period.
Permit, so he needs his final decision, obviously, right?
Yeah, in order for me to get the building permit, I need a decision, so that's fine. I'll talk with them downstairs. That's fine. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to number 1, 271 Delaware Avenue.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, 87 Jameson. Is there any opposition to, anybody here in opposition? You are? No, we haven't dealt with 1 or 2 because they were, pardon? Yeah, well, we're going to come to you. Okay, no opposition? Okay, so the purpose of this application is to alter the basement level of the existing 9.5-story apartment building by converting storage and locker space into 2 one-bedroom rental units and by converting 2 existing one-bedroom rental units and adjacent storage space into 2 two-bedroom rental units. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant and correspondence from planning and engineering. Your name, sir?
Is Andrew Dales. I'm planning consultant for Jameson Properties Holdings. And just want to correct one thing. The initial plan was to convert these 2 locker rooms in the basement to 2 one-bedroom units. We've made a recent, That's right. Yeah, so we made a revision just to introduce what we believe is a really important improvement to the building, which is an accessible entrance. It's my understanding that there's no, that change doesn't impact any of the variances that we're requesting.
So what,
Instead of 2 one-bedroom units, it should be 1 one-bedroom unit and 1 bachelor unit.
We have to alter the basement level of the existing 9.5-story apartment building by converting storage and locker space into 2 one-bedroom rental units, but that's now what?
1 one-bedroom and 1 bachelor. The units that are being created, 1 bachelor unit and 1 one-bedroom unit.
A one-bedroom.
1 one-bedroom,
Bachelor?
1 bachelor.
Yes.
Rental unit, bachelor and.
Yes.
And then what about the 2 existing one-bedroom rental units? Are they still being?
They're being converted to 2-bedroom, but those, that part of it that's a Section 111 application. That doesn't actually generate any of these variances.
But it's part of.
It's part of the proposal, yes. Yes.
And that's the result of your initiation to put an accessible ramp into the basement, right?
That has nothing to do with the conversion of the 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms. Sorry, the accessible entrance did cut into one of the 1 bedrooms we're creating, and that's why it's become a bachelor.
that doesn't trigger any new variance or affect the existing variances?
That's correct.
Okay.
That doesn't change.
Okay, so just a little bit of additional information. As part of this unit creation plan, the owner plans some additional improvements to the building in addition to the accessible ramp. They're going to be renovating and expanding the existing laundry room with a new seating area. They're going to create a new storage locker room and a long-term bicycle parking facility. And again, these improvements are in addition to the accessible entrance. Variances are required for parking, loading, the location of the garbage storage area, and outdoor amenity space. The parking variance is only for 1 additional parking space. There are currently 41 parking spaces on the property and an underground parking garage. That's about 98% of the required parking spaces are provided. This amount of parking will be more than enough to satisfy demand from existing and new tenants. In terms of the loading space, the current building doesn't have a loading space, and creating one would be, very disruptive to the existing building. And we didn't get a comment from Engineering and Construction Services that would be required. They would recommend that would be required. Now, the outdoor amenity space variance is an interesting one. It's only for 4 square meters of outdoor amenity space, and the property doesn't have any outdoor amenity space currently. What's interesting here is that it seems that there's a flaw in the new bylaw, and staff are aware of this. Firstly, the 4 square meters, obviously wouldn't create a practical, outdoor amenity space. But
It's here, 40 square.
so that's the flaw. That part of the bylaw. I talked to the zoning bylaw team. That was meant to, be a requirement for new construction. They didn't really envision the creation of new residential GFA, new rental dwelling units in existing building. So, while we only need 4 square meters of outdoor amenity space, 40 of those square meters have to be contiguous to the indoor amenity space, so it just doesn't make any sense. And it's my understanding that staff intend to address this problem with the technical amendment to 569/2013, in the near future. They're aware of the problem, so it's there's only 4 square meters required. So the variance is actually for 40 square meters to be contiguous to the indoor amenity space. But there's no existing, it just doesn't make any sense.
There is outdoor amenity space, though.
There is no, there's none at all. So,
No,
Okay.
so the requirement is for us to provide 4 square meters, and 40 square meters have to be contiguous. It's just, it's on its face, it's,
but you don't have indoor amenity space either.
we're creating a gym in the basement, so that's why there's no indoor amenity space variance required. So we are creating it, but it wouldn't be possible to make in this circumstance, the outdoor amenity space contiguous with this gym in the basement in any event.
You said you're renovating the laundry areas. Laundry's on the ground floor or the main floor?
In the basement. Yes. So we're expanding it and putting in, you know, a larger seating area and doing some general improvements.
My question, you're actually you're reusing existing space. And some of it is laundry. You're maintaining most of the laundry.
They're just rationalizing it, you know.
The other areas that are going to be transferred into dwelling units are now storage units.
That's right.
Are they available to the tenants of the building?
Yeah, I believe you know, they're underutilized. They're not, you know, there's a pretty strong official plan policy that where there are opportunities to create new, you know, rental dwelling units in circumstances where there's underutilized space and infill is a, you know, I believe.
My question is a very simple one. The areas that you're transferring from another use into residential unit are in fact now storage units.
That's right. I'm not sure if they rent them out or how they deal with.
And there are still storage units available.
That's right.
Bicycle racks and so forth.
That's right. They're creating a new storage locker area, just more efficient. It wasn't laid out very efficiently when the building was built.
Or is the storage available then for all tenants of the building?
I believe so, yes. And a bicycle storage area as well.
So the waste and recycle areas were outside?
Yeah, I talked to solid waste management staff. They're comfortable. You know, the garbage storage area, fully enclosed outdoor garbage storage area, has been working well for, you know, many years. They're comfortable with that arrangement for it to continue, and not to mention that it's just not practical in an existing purpose-built apartment building to, you know, start opening up the whole building and creating new garbage storage rooms inside the building. That's a requirement that's makes sense in new buildings. But when you have a situation where the existing building and the garbage handling of solid waste has been functioning very well for many years, wouldn't make sense to be, you know, to introduce a very disruptive change in the building that isn't necessary.
Mr. Dallas, I guess, point out that we've had similar applications like this, and we've had both letters and people attending, tenants in the building, with the whole hue and cry that they're taking away our storage units, and we have small apartments, and we need a place to store our stuff. We don't have any of this here. We don't have any letters from tenants in the building or no one attending here pointing that out. So I don't know if the unit sizes are sufficient in this 9.5-story building that's such that you know, people have enough storage in their own, but there doesn't seem to be that hue and cry that we've seen in other situations. Any other questions?
I have a, you know, I can get into the variances further if you'd like, or if you have any questions for me.
I think you've said you're creating storage space elsewhere in the building.
Correct.
So that's why there's no hue and cry. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll bring a motion forward. You've pointed out many of these conditions that are variances are existing. The garbage, the loading, and the outdoor amenity space, there's none of those right now. This is a 91-unit building. You're only adding 4 additional units.
2 additional units, and we're converting 2 one-bedroom. Yeah,
so you're actually adding 2. So
that's right.
That's even more so in terms of what I'm saying. You're only adding 2 units, and so the only real variance here, in my view, is the 1 additional parking space that would have an impact.
And there's no room to.
It's minor in this particular situation. So my motion is for approval of the, I guess, revised application, and there are no conditions.
I would second the motion, and I would also like to compliment the applicant for the initiation of an accessible entrance to the basement. It's quite a nice initiative.
Thank you.
All in favor? You have your approval, sir.
Thank you.
Now, we'll go back to number 1. (271) Delaware Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter a 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a secondary suite, a 2-story rear addition, and a 3rd-floor addition. We have before us materials submitted by the applicant and correspondence in opposition from 269 Delaware Avenue.
Would the neighbors in opposition please come and join us at the front of the room? There we go. Okay. You're in the right place. Did we get a letter last night?
Your name, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sean Tusi. I'm the office principal at Mimar Architects Inc., representing the owner, who is also present here today. I apologize, I got a cold over the weekend, so I might cough as we go through the presentation.
Sorry, just before we get started, the neighbor, you said you sent in a letter last night?
Yeah, my husband did.
From what address? We have a letter from 269 next door. I don't see. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, it is a addition on a 2 floors, as well as adding a 3rd floor to existing. In a neighborhood that the permitted height is about 12 meter, it is permitted to have a 3-story. And there are projects and houses in the neighborhood that are also 3-story. With your permission, I'll go to the projectors and I will try to speak a little bit louder. So I can do 2 things at the same time. So I'll explain the proposal on the 1st floor. So on the 1st floor, the neighbor 1-story house finishes here. As you see, it looks very much like a semi-detached house. However, it took us about 2 months to figure out that these are actually detached house in title, even though that they're completely abutting. And that causes almost half of the variances today in terms of the side yard setback, because if this was a semi, this is completely acceptable. But if this is entitled a detached house, then these walls being completely attached creates a variance of a side yard setback on that side, which is one of the variances, or requires the eaves distance or the platform distance. So a part of the variances you have is completely technical, because in title of this house is considered a detached house and not a semi.
Tell us which variances you say are affected by this wall.
So specifically, Mr. Chair, the variances number 1 and 2 at the end of the list, a hearing notice. So the one that says, the number 2, a building is required to be located minimum separation distance of 0.9 to the side wall of adjacent, where we are 0, because again, that's a detached. And the item above that, number 1, says minimum required side lot line is 0.9, but then we are 0, again, because this is considered a detached house, and because of that, these variances are created. What this project is about, so the neighbor that is attaching to is the one that is most affected, and the one that we do have an opposition letter, so I'll specify. So on the ground floor, we are lining up almost maybe about a foot. The 1st floor is projecting from what the neighbor has, which is very much in keeping with what they have. We had to create this jog because they built their addition about a foot into our lot, but that's where the jog comes, and then that was the only way to make it happen. And the 2nd floor.
Is that a 1-story addition at the back of the neighbor's house?
Yes, it is a 1-story. On the 2nd floor, so this is their roof. This is where their walls end, and that's where we have our 2-story extent. So the existing 2-story is right here, this dotted line as you see. So this is the existing condition, and we're adding this much. This is the amount we're adding. And then we have this balcony, which through talking with the neighbors after we saw the letter 2 days ago, it was discussed that would offer privacy fence on that side to address the concerns they have for the privacy.
Since you have that up, can you, well, maybe you'll get to it. I'm sure it's a item at issue, is that big staircase that's leading from the balcony down.
Yes, absolutely.
Creates
Yes.
issues in my view, so I'd like to hear about that.
And I have a question as well. If you're going to put privacy on the one side of the deck, why would you not put it on the other side as well? Because the impact on the neighbors on this side is even more substantial.
Well, we should, yeah, I've just confirmed with the owner. They would be fine to have privacy on both sides. So this way we make sure there is no view to it. And then going to the 3rd floor, so as you notice, as we go towards the 3rd floor, we are basically backing out. So this 3rd floor is kind of built up inside the roof. So Thus, it doesn't have any impact in terms of additional shadows to the backyards or creating any extensive views. The way I would show it.
However, there is a very substantial terrace there because there's potential overlook to the property as well, to both properties. That's a very large terrace.
Yes, and as we mentioned, on both floors, we're fine with having a privacy fence going up. And it is required by the building code. Maybe I can address that right now. Because this is a 3-story, and this is the look of the front of the house, which talks about the main wall height variance. So the way the bylaw measures, they measure from here to the highest point of the dormer. So the 10.12 meter that you see on the variance is measured from here to this point. However, if you notice where the roof actually starts, which is the main wall height, is, you may not see it here, but it is 7.75. So this number that shows from here where the soffit starts, which is the requirement of main wall height, is only 25 centimeter higher. So the requirement is 7.5. What we are proposing is 7.75. But the way the bylaw is written, so they technically measure it to the highest point of the highest dormer. That's why you see that number. Otherwise, we are only 25 centimeter more than what the bylaw requires. And should the committee decide to approve the application, we're fine to attach the front elevation to it. In terms of the total height, we don't have any variances. We are in fact shorter than what the height is required. And looking at the neighbor on the left side, this is where the roof line is. And then this is the neighbor on 269, which wrote the letter of opposition. So this piece is literally shorter than the neighbor on the left and is higher than from the neighbor on the right. Sort of a transitional piece from going to a higher building to a lower building, despite not even creating a variance. But in terms of how it fits and sits between the two houses, that we have done the arrangement, so that it basically steps down as we go towards. Again, this is the neighbor on the left side, number 273 developer, and then this is our proposal, and then this is the number 269. The last item I would address, the stairs at the back is unfortunately, I would say, is required because of the building code. When we have a higher travel distance on a 3-story, they need 2 exits. And the logic is that if a fire comes, people need to be able to have a space to stand, like a balcony, so that they don't get affected to the smoke. And then they do need a second exit or egress to go out. The egress cannot be close to any opening on the lower floors. The logic is that if the house gets in fire, the fire will break the glass, and then you will have fire coming out of the first floor. If the stair is running adjacent to it, then it will literally make the exit useless. So the building code requires a distance, and then this very much shows in the first floor. We did talk with the neighbors. That's the sole purpose of this stair, is to accommodate the requirement of build. So literally, we couldn't really have this stair going that way because we have this going this way. And because we don't have any possibility of having a window here, nor here, it leaves us really with that little spot to have any window. Because of that, we were forced to put this. There might be ways that we can avoid it, and I'm not sure if this is a condition that the committee would force that to remove this stair, and this is what the owner is prepared to do. Should the committee decide to approve the application, it would be conditional of removing the stair at the back, unless it is a requirement of the building code, which at that time the zoning examiner and the building code examiner can verify that. So this way we make sure that if there is a stair like that, is only purely because of the purpose of the building code. In a neighborhood that the bylaw permits 3-story and permits the height of 12 meter, it kind of defeats the purpose if the people can't really comply with the building code, but the zoning permits them to do. So we're prepared to that condition as well, should the committee decide. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Neighbor, please. Oh, do you have a question?
Is the entrance to the basement from the front of the house, is that an existing condition? You can.
No, it is not, through you, Mr. Chair, it's not existing condition,
So it's.
but it is not creating any variances either.
Okay, but that's part of your
Proposal.
construction, which is
So
to
the way-
have a front entrance to the basement.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So the way the two units are separated, the second floor and third floor will be one unit, and basement and ground floor will be one unit.
But you have a separate entrance in the front. That's variance number 4. The additions will alter the main wall that faces the street. You have the entrance to the, you have 2 entrances at the front? I guess you need the
Yes,
entrance to
there's
the
one to the
second and
main
third.
floor and one to the basement.
Right.
And my question was going to be,
That is a variance.
where else are there basement, front basement entrances on the street? Which you might want to deal with later, but that's the question I have.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Neighbor, please. Yes, you have to.
Sorry, I don't know all the technical language. I don't know the first thing about this, so I'm going to do my best.
The first thing we need is your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Amanda Hayden, Heydon. I'm at 261 Delaware. And although we're not directly adjacent to the property, many of the neighbors who are elderly and English is not their first language, so I thought I was at least positioned to come and do this.
Ms. Hayden, you mentioned you sent in a letter last.
Yes, so my husband sent in a letter. I understand that Teresa received it, although there was then some back and forth about posting it on the website because he didn't want our email addresses posted publicly. He's a criminal prosecutor, so he's got some sensitivity about that. That might be the reason that you didn't receive a copy. I do have an extra copy. I can give you a hard copy if that would help. Yeah, I think as long as you black out the email addresses.
Speak to it, I guess, or you
Sure.
have one copy, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess it's a little bit difficult for me to speak to it because the concerns that he's articulated here are really the quantitative concerns about the sort of the totality of what's being asked for here. A lot of the variances that are being asked for are not minor, in our opinion, and that's one of the considerations. I think there's 4 factors that the committee is asked to consider. One of those is whether the variance requested is minor, and in our view, it's not, particularly when you consider all the variances taken together. I think you have to look at the context of the neighborhood. This is a block of 100-plus-year-old houses. They're very consistent. All the other houses on this side of the street don't have any of the kinds of modifications that are being proposed here. We live in an existing 2-story house. It's part of a long row of 2-story houses. The house immediately adjacent to 73 on the north side, that's a set of 2 semi-detached Victorian houses. They have steeply pitched roofs, so you can't just look at the maximum height of the roof. They conveniently didn't give you a picture of what the roof line looks like. It's a 2.5-story house. It's not a full 3rd story. So the top peak of the roof is, if you were to measure the height, I guess it's quite high, but it drops off very steeply from that. Whereas what they're proposing is basically a flat roof. They have, if you look at the picture that shows the kind of cross-cut of the house, the front roof line is actually a wall, right? Like they're trying to maximize the floor space underneath. It's not at all consistent with the roof pitches or roof lines of any of the surrounding houses. They've only shown you a little section of Steve's house next door at 269. They haven't showed you sort of what the whole streetscape looks like. It's a street of old, steeply pitched roof houses. So I think there's sort of the quantitative concerns, which are what my husband gets into in his letter, comparing what's being asked for with what the requirements in the bylaw are and trying to take that in totality. But there's also just the qualitative concern. If you were to actually look at a picture of what this proposal is going to look like in the row of very closely packed together houses, this is going to stick out like a sore thumb. That's our concern. One of our major concerns was, as you already alluded to, that back staircase. I can see into this backyard quite clearly from my backyard. All I'm going to see is like wall and staircase is my concern. It's a beautiful set of backyards right now. 269 has a huge cherry tree. It's the biggest cherry tree I've ever seen. It's kind of like a neighborhood wonder. And so my concern is with all this construction activity in the neighboring backyard, is that going to damage that tree as well? Instead of now looking out and enjoying this tree, I'm going to look out and see a big staircase. And I appreciate the commitment to include privacy screens, because that's another concern that we, and I understand 269 have as well, is the privacy overlook into our backyards. But when you add the privacy screens now, that also has the effect of making it that much more visually obtrusive as well. They've committed to wood privacy screens, but I mean, that could, depending on how those are done, that could be very visually obtrusive. so I think we have concerns that are both quantitative and qualitative. It's really not consistent with the surrounding houses. When you look at the back walls I'll back onto a laneway. When you look from the laneway at the backs of all the houses, they're all consistent. Our houses all project out the same amount at the back. None of them have large back additions. The small addition on the back of 269, it's not even the full width of the house. It's half the width of the house. It's just a powder room. It's a tiny little powder room with a sloped roof. So again, what they're proposing to add is much bigger than what's on the back.
First of all, thank you. Very good presentation. You said you're new at this, but you've done a very good job. I'm looking at the letter that we got from the neighbor at 269,
Yep.
and they do point out that the area comparable listings show no house approaching the change in the FSI within a kilometer. The applicant has given us some properties.
Comparables, none of those are close by.
Yeah, they look like they're not exactly. I just wanted to get your confirmation.
Yeah, we had the same reaction, and if you look at them, I think some of them are on much more major streets. We're a very quiet, one-way residential street.
Right. Okay. And I guess perhaps when you can leave the letter with.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to.
Have to be formed with it, but I guess you sort of paraphrased, but.
Yeah, I mean, he goes into a lot more specifics about what the bylaw requires versus what's being proposed here, and, relating that to the 4 factors that the committee is asked to consider. I mean, we don't really know anything about the general intent and purpose of the official plan, so we can't speak to that. But just about the desirability of this as an appropriate development and the general intent of the city's zoning code. I mean, and I guess what we will say is we're sensitive to the fact that, with housing prices these days, multiple units are a fact of life. But the fact is, on our block, we've had 2 other houses that have been converted from single-family houses to 2 units. And none of them have required any of the kinds of exterior changes that are being proposed here. I'm kind of struck by, I was trying to understand what the building code requirements about this exterior staircase were, and it sounds to me from what I understand from the architect, the whole reason that's required is because they're adding a 3rd story. If they kept it to 2 stories, the exterior staircase wouldn't be required at all, is my understanding.
And the other properties on your street that you say are more compatible with the existing character, to the best of your knowledge, has the 3rd story addition in those cases been accommodated within the attic space? Is that why?
There are no 3rd story additions.
There's none?
No.
But all of the properties have very steeply pitched roofs, so there's a substantial attic on all of those.
So there are some houses on our side of the block, on the east side of the block, that had existing 3rd stories, but those, like, it's within the pitched roof,
So you don't
and that was existing, it wasn't added. You don't see it, or it's the small dormer windows if you see anything. There are no houses that were 2-story houses where a 3rd story has been added.
Okay, thank you.
So you don't have a picture of the houses on the street?
I probably do. I could find some in my phone probably, or you could look on.
The applicant in his rebuttal can show us the neighborhood context, the street context, because I think that's missing from your materials before us at this point.
Maybe you could look for it. I'm not going to call on you to show it to us now, but we might want to see it after we hear from the applicant.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then are you going to block out your husband's contact information?
I will. I only have a pen, so if anyone has a Sharpie I could use, I'd appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Mr. Applicant?
Mr. Chair, this is I tried to pull it out from the phone. So this is the subject property. This is 269, and then this is the neighboring property. I do agree that in general in the City of Toronto, most of the 3rd floors are built into the attic, and then they're given light by the means of dormers, which is exactly what we're doing. So this house has a 3-story. So I do disagree that there are no other houses. So this has a 3-story. This house, which is our neighboring, is one of the shortest houses in the neighborhood. If you look at this house is taller, and our house, once it's built, is going to be somewhat here, which be very much in keeping with this house here. Are there other 3 stories or are there heights?
Could I just clarify? Your house will be, you're saying your house will be
About here, in the middle.
Your house, for the most part, will go straight up, whereas these are pitched back. I know you have a dormer and a slight pitch, but it's not, your 3rd floor is not actually in an attic. It's just, there's a very, very light slope to the front wall of the 3rd
Well, it's not very light. It's actually a pitched roof, like a 60% angle. I can show you a section. I'll show you the section. You decide if.
And if you also you were starting to give us a little panorama to the
Absolutely, yes.
side where the 261 is, if you could.
Do you have a flat roof now?
No. So it is a shingle.
It's right there.
Yeah, you can see it's.
Okay, so that's.
This is actually this going just. I'm just going around the neighborhood. So as you see, we have the roofs, and then we have the dormers coming out, and we're doing the exact same thing.
That's a two-story, what you're
Yeah.
showing.
This is a 3-story right across the street, which is again the same thing. We have the roof, and then we have the dormer, which is exactly what we're doing. Like what we're doing across the street is going to be very similar to this. Looking further out, this is another. I'm not sure if they do have, but for sure this one, you can see the sill of a window on the 3rd story. So this one also has it. So having the roof and then having a dormer inside is what is happening there, and it is what we are proposing. In terms of other houses are building that size, so this is the map that we submitted.
Why haven't you shown us something closer, or are there none that are over 1 times coverage closer by? Because those are pretty sort of far flung from the property.
Well, we have 68 Delaware Avenue that was proposed 1.22. We are requesting 1.
68 is a huge distance away, you know.
But all of these have the same zoning. They literally fall under the same zoning category.
It's another 100
And this one is Delaware, and it's
houses.
asking, all of them are asking 1.2,
Mhm.
1.1, and we're asking 1.
What is it now? What's the current, what is it at now?
So currently I can't give you the exact number, probably if you give me some time, but again, this shows very clearly that currently we are above 60, because we're probably around 80%. The reason I say this is that the amount we're adding is very clear here. So this is how much we're adding on the 2nd floor. So this line back is all existing. So this is how much we're adding 6 feet. I can do it very quickly. So it's a 6 feet. We're adding 6 feet by 10. So 6 feet by 10, that's 60 square feet here. And on the ground floor, and this is the ground floor, that's the existing wall, and that's the proposed wall.
And then the 3rd floor is new, correct?
And the 3rd floor is completely new. Yes.
Could you put drawing A17 up? Because it's pretty helpful to understand the proposal. And except for the stairway at the back, is that drawing accurate still for your proposal?
Yeah.
You mean the section, or?
No, drawing A17.
Well, my drawings, because it is a different size, can you tell me what it is? I can approach and put it on
Is
the.
wrong again.
No, that's not ours.
That's why you don't have it. It's
Oh,
in the
okay.
wrong
Yes,
place.
yeah.
This
Pardon
is-
me. Okay, well, I was trying to put together what you were saying.
We're the Delaware, the two.
A08, does that help, Carl, the cross-section of it?
No, that was the place in my agenda.
We're not like that. We're
Very looking,
absolutely
yeah.
not like that.
Okay, that's good.
No, but this is, you're adding this.
So how is he
that's-
showing his,
that's-
yeah.
Now I understand why you had a concern, why the 3rd floor looks like a wall. No, it is the actual pitch. Let me show you the front.
Here,
Well,
Carl.
it's-
No,
Oh,
mine was in.
No,
that
that's
section
wrong.
was in the wrong place. But it is still a flat roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a pitch.
With a very
it's-
small pitch here. It's the same, but it
Same
wasn't that
idea.
drawn. Yeah, yeah. So it's A08.
So all that space on the 3rd floor is new, which is,
And then, as I mentioned, like this from here to here, required of a bylaw is 7.5. We're 25 centimeter more. But why you have that higher number? Because the zoning looks at it from front elevation, and they measure the highest point. So really, that is like we are 25, which we could even remove that. Like we could probably extend the soffit so that it lowers the number, but I don't know if 25 centimeter is something that would really impact. And I also got the other number that we're adding 60 square feet on the ground floor, and we're adding 10 by 10, and we're adding 100 square feet on the second floor. And the third floor is built inside that form of an attic. So for somebody looking at it from the street,
Yeah, but you're still adding that square footage, because the FSI is, in my view, is getting high. You know, you're going from 0.6 times of what's permitted to, and I appreciate you may be over, but you're going to 1.005 times the lot area. And there's a reason why there's floor space index plus setbacks plus height to avoid a situation like this. So you may be, you're going over in height, but maybe, you know, you're not over overall height, but all of these factors in terms of the zoning need to be taken into account and together so that we don't have situations where you're building really tall houses that might fit one standard but not the other. So in my view, the floor space index is getting high for the size of the lot, I think, in this context.
Maybe deferral would give us the chance to increase the pitches or work on eliminating some of the variances. We can check with the building code if we
Did you discuss this with
can
the
remove
neighbors?
this
Like,
there.
did you have active discussions with your neighbor next door that's opposing it?
We had it very early. The owner actually started discussing it very early. Their letter really, though, came 2 days before the hearing, which the same day we called, I talked to them, and it seems that they're fine with the privacy while they didn't give me their consent saying that yes, it's good. But the husband was okay, Steve seems to be okay, but then asked them, why don't you go talk to the wife and let us know. The idea was that we put a privacy fence, and the stairs will be removed unless it is mandatory by building code.
Right.
You were told it was mandatory, were you not? I thought in your earlier submission you indicated you were told you had to put the
Well,
stairs there.
as an architect, Mr. Chair, as an architect.
Oh, I know, they're awful, but.
Yes.
And the point that was made by the lady that spoke to us is that you have a third floor deck and a second floor balcony, and in order to offset any overlook, you could in fact put screening. The deck and the balcony could be seen as already an intrusion, and that screening makes them even more of a visual intrusion. Prevents you from looking out, but it also creates a greater visual barrier to people looking at your property. The other point I'd like to raise is the other point that this lady made, and that was that she made a very strong argument that the existing context for the area is that there aren't really third stories, other than people that have reused attic space, which is the one that you said you drew out our attention actually is a third story. But in fact, it is in an attic space. It's completely enclosed in a high-pitched roof. I go back to the point I made earlier. I believe you have a flat roof third floor, and you've sloped the front wall in slightly, very, very much as you've indicated. Because of the way building heights are measured, you could actually come in with less building height by getting rid of that single dormer and taking across, which is why there are so many mansard roofs in this city. But I don't think what you're proposing and what the existing condition is on the street are the same thing. I think they're quite different.
We're copying this. Like this, we're copying.
But
See,
you're
the
not.
sidewall goes all the way high. This is a straight line. And then we have a dormer at the front. I do agree with you. This wall probably has more angle, which maybe through the deferral we could come up with a design that has more angle to make it even more similar to this.
We just spent, yeah, I don't see a deferral being helpful in this situation, given how much time you spent on this.
But it is exactly like this house, but a shorter version.
Yeah.
It's like right beside it. It's not even like a couple of houses away. And we have a tall house, we have a short house. Ours is going to be right in the middle, a transitional piece. I think it will help to move down. Going back to the stair, as an architect, I believe the stair is most likely required. But then an examiner might come up with other solutions. For example, they may say, if you put, I don't know, a sprinkler in this section, you don't have to put a staircase. I may be talking to companies that their job is building code. So one way would be for you, should you decide to approve it, to remove the stair altogether. And then we'll find an alternative.
Another alternative is to remove the terrace altogether.
Yeah, like you have the same tenant or the same second and third floor, but you have a balcony on both, creating this situ. And you also, yeah. And the other issue, we don't sort of redesign at this stage, but the other thing is, I think you were asked about the other situations of a second entrance at the front, because I guess you need the entrance for the tenant or the dwelling unit on the first floor in the basement, and another one for the second floor. Have you answered that question? Are there other?
Yeah, actually, this house, the proposed house, entrance to the basement from the front is existing. So that's
That's variance 4, right? The additions will alter a main wall that faces the street.
No, the variance number 4 is because we're adding the third story, so we're modifying the front of the house.
Right.
So just to clarify,
Where's the entrance?
Because that's not what you said.
It wasn't my
Okay,
mistake.
fair enough. So
My mistake.
the front basement entrance is in existence.
Is existing. It's currently there. Yeah, it
Okay.
shows in this Google picture behind the HVAC. Is going down from the side. We are doing an underpinning, so that's why we're basically extending it underpinning to make the basement height, but that isn't existing. So the current house is a legally, lawfully existing front entrance to the basement. The height, we are really, we're a transitional piece. I don't believe that we are, by no means, we're not even reaching the height required by the bylaw. The neighbor does, but we're not, and we're copying what they are doing. Except that we might have a different angles. For the rear stairs, we're prepared for removal of the stairs, even though it's not creating any variances. But we do understand that it does impact the viewpoint, so we're prepared to remove that. For the size of the balconies, I know 100% we need a balcony for the building code purpose, because in case of a fire, people have to come out. So even if we find a reason for the building code to put a sprinkler in the building to avoid that, but maybe reducing the size of the balcony instead of the 22-meter, it could be like the typical 40 square feet permitted by the bylaw in other parts of the city. Then it solves the privacy too, because then that 40 square feet, the balcony finishes way before it even reaches to the edge.
I think that the thing that concerns me is the drawing A.08 is the flat roof, and I think that the neighbor objects to the flat roof too, as opposed to the peak roofs. And so when I looked at the original thing, and I asked this question before, and I got shot down because they said, no, it's not a flat roof now. Did it go up and down on a peak previously? Before you, and is the existing roof peak?
There's the existing here.
Is that the existing, or is that next door?
I just put it up.
This is in here, right?
So it can't, Mr. Chair, because we have, the existing building is the same structure. The reason is that we can't really pitch this way because we have a house here. And then the same way here, we don't have any pitch on this side. The same goes with this. This is the character of all of them. The sidewalls goes straight up, and then whatever you have at the front, they go up and then either come down straight, or they have a flat section and then they come out.
To respond to the question, could you put drawing A.08 up? I believe you've actually got the existing pitched roof in the drawing.
Yes, exactly, yes.
That's it there, right?
Yeah. As you see, the existing is basically the sidewalls are straight up, then they will come down, and then they have a flat section at the back, which all the way goes to here.
So that seems to me what the neighbor is objecting to is that portion, this flat part here. And she says that's out of keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, et cetera.
But see, all the houses, second floors, they're second floor, they're all finished here. Oh, sorry, they're all finished here.
But we're talking
This
about.
is not visible by anyone at any point, not from the house on the left, from the right, because a lot of
you, sir. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, does anyone have any other questions? Mr. Chairman, in reviewing the agenda, I was first struck by the size of some of the requested variances, which I personally thought were substantial. So then, of course, I turned the page to see how they have been implemented in its building form. And I believe that in this case, these rather substantial variances result in a building that, to me, is out of keeping with the character of the neighborhood, both in terms of its bulk and in terms of the form. I think that the photograph shown and the evidence given by the person that appeared in opposition indicate that there's a rather characteristic pitched roof, two-story or pitched roof with the attic space being used, vernacular within the area. And I don't believe that inserting this particular building, which is, in my view, too large for the site, is appropriate. On that basis, Mr. Chairman, I'm bringing forth a motion of not approval on the application.
We have a seconder.
I'm going to second it. I agree with my colleagues' comments, and as well, I think this is, in terms of the FSI, it's going over. I mean, I know you're adding, as you say, a smaller portion on the second floor, but you're adding an entire third floor, which would contribute significantly to this large jump in FSI, notwithstanding the fact you might already be over. And I agree that the built form that you're proposing is not in keeping with what is currently on the street. So I'm seconding the motion for refusal.
All in favor? Application is refused. Thank you.
Maybe tell the neighbor, fill out one of those white decision request cards with your email address, maybe not your husband's, because you'll want to be notified in the event of an appeal.
No, Number 212 Christie Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a front two-story addition with a second-story balcony, a rear two-story addition with a basement walkout, a ground floor deck, and second-story balcony, and a third-story addition with front dormers and a rear balcony. The rear detached garage will be demolished and replaced with a rear parking pad. And before us on this application, we have a material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, and correspondence and a report from Transportation Services. We have correspondence from 63 Yarmouth Road in concern or interest, and opposition from 214 Christie Street. Yes, sir, your name.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Daniel Wong. I'm the agent representing the client. Before we go ahead, I understand you receive correspondence. We work with planning, and we sent in revised drawings to reflect the modified variances that I'm going to present right now. Do you want me to first go through those?
So you're modifying your
Modifying proposal. We spoke with the application technician. She, she advised us just to bring 6 hard copies of the drawings today, which, to me, it didn't seem like it was something that we are used to do, but...
Does it affect any variance?
I understand, but we spoke to her, we mentioned to her whether or not we need to present it or defer it just to have everything cleared, a proper public notice hearing sent out, but she didn't advise us of that.
So when did you make these revisions?
Just the last couple of days.
And are those revisions to the building itself or the positioning of the building on the lot?
The building itself, yes.
Okay, can you, I apologize ahead of time, my agenda had this misfiled.
Okay.
A17, is that your proposal?
Sorry.
And is that substantial?
Yes.
Okay, now that's substantially changed in your discussion?
Substantially in terms of the shape and design, no, but the size, yes.
So what variances does it affect?
Okay, I will go through them. So
All right, but let's just hear what he's talking about.
First of all, to you, Mr. Chair, we did actually suggest it to have it deferred, but the application technician wouldn't allow us, so I don't know if this is standard protocol.
We're here before the committee, and if you have substantial revisions which affect the variances, and we don't want to hear that today.
I understand, but we made it clear to the application technician. I told her if we come here with modified variances,
Okay,
you know.
so you're in favor of a deferral?
I'm actually am, yes.
Okay, all right, please sit down. Madam, you're in opposition? Could you come forward, please?
Can I clarify first?
Yes.
Why do you want a deferral?
Because again, we made changes to the.
And you think the changes,
Well,
the changes to.
the changes work favor with working with planning, as well as the neighbor who's going to speak soon.
One of the problems in those negotiations, and this isn't your fault, but one of the problems that this puts us in is the application was advertised.
Right, right.
Some people might object to your.
I understand.
And we have to give them that opportunity.
No, absolutely, I understand. And I also mentioned that to the application technician too.
So it's going to affect the variances, so.
It will, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so, Madam, could you give us your name and your address?
Yeah, my name's Demetri Makroulis. I'm here representing my mom who lives at 214 Christie Street, which is the attached house.
Okay, and do you have any you've discussed this matter with this gentleman? Do you
So I've
have any
discussed-
objection to a deferral?
Well, I don't have any objections to deferral. I just wanted to state that the reason why we're here today is just to make sure that the actual revised plans were submitted today, because they did.
We're not dealing with the revised plans today because they affect the variance.
Okay.
Notices that went out may not be,
Yeah, so if you want to talk
Good.
about the original plans, we had major objections. And we
not-
did.
all right, he doesn't want to talk about the original plans, so you're not opposed to a deferral so that we can deal with the revised plans?
Sure.
You're with the Mikrolos family,
Yes.
correct? We have your letter, and you were taking away the balconies and making other revisions and not going back as far.
Yeah.
You don't have those plans before us.
So if those plans were before us, would they address your concerns?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk through them.
Generally speaking?
Generally speaking, yeah.
So a deferral to allow the applicant to work with you and the community to address your concerns would be a reasonable thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
she could review the plans too, and
Yeah.
your parents.
Yeah, I mean, I did review the plans with the neighbor, but I do understand you want to give other neighbors the opportunity to take a look at the plans. So generally speaking, like, our biggest concern was just, they wanted to go really, really far back, block shade, a lot of privacy
you.
concerns, and so most of them were addressed. So generally speaking, we're okay, but.
Thank you very much. We're going to deal with the deferral.
Okay.
Any further questions? No? Do we have a motion for a deferral?
So do I have to attend the next?
It's up to you.
Not if the
Up to you.
If the new proposal that comes to you, you'll get a notice, and the new proposal doesn't have any, you don't have any concerns with it, you don't need to come.
Okay.
You could, that would be helpful, a letter indicating that it's been changed and you are in agreement. You don't have to come, but it'd be helpful for us, for you to send us a letter that say you have concerns and you believe they've been addressed. We're guessing, because we don't know what it is. Proposal is.
All right, do we have a motion for deferral? Or a motion opposing deferral?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move a motion of deferral, but I'd like it to be very specific. I'd like to move a motion of deferral to allow the applicant to work with the adjacent owners and the community to address the outstanding concerns with this proposal. So you realize that when you come back, the very first question you're going to get is, what did you do to address the concerns of the neighborhood and the adjacent owners?
Yes, I understand.
I guess it's going to be probably sort of what was summarized in the neighbor's letter that we agreed to do, but unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get the revised plans, so.
Circulating the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I'm seconding the motion for a deferral.
All in favor? You have your deferral, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4, 59 Barton Avenue. purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a third-story dormer addition above the existing second story. We have before us on this application material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, and a report from planning. Correspondence in support from Sean Freeman and opposition from 61 Palmerston Square, 799 Euclid Avenue, 61 Barton, 797 Euclid, 793 and 795 Euclid Avenue.
Okay, would the neighbors present on this application please come sit, take a seat at the front table there?
Okay.
There are neighbors here in opposition, correct? Please come sit there. Sir, you're the applicant? Okay. Mr. Chair, I think when you were reading out your summary of the information on this application, you indicated that Sean Freeman was in support. I believe that the applicant appears, just to summarize, to have filed with the application support letters from an application from 4 to 5 years ago, and I believe those have been retracted. I would like to hear why the applicant thought it was appropriate to attach those letters of support from an old, different application to his materials that he submitted, but I believe that that support has been clarified by both the applicant and by the neighbors, that it was not intended for this application, but for the application that went to the OMB back in March 2014. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Thank you.
Right, so that approval has been withdrawn. Mr. Freeman's approval has been withdrawn.
I believe several neighbors' approvals that were put in with the package that were, to me, entirely inappropriate to have attached, that it's been clarified, and the applicant has confirmed that those should not have been attached. I'd like to find out why that happened.
Do you want to speak to this?
An applicant is required to come to this committee with clean hands, and I think it was pretty disingenuous for those letters, unless they were attached in error, to have been attached to the application materials that were submitted with this application. Requiring the neighbors to go ahead and write letters to clarify that they had not approved this application and the letter related to an application some 5 years ago. Thank you. Sure.
Mr. Freeman is...
Can we get your name and address, please?
I'm Nicholas Whistler from 59 Barton.
Yes.
And my wife Karen is sitting down over there. I included these because he owns the building we're attached to, because we are now doing a design exactly as he proposed to do as an architect. He's an architect. And so this is his suggestion for what he would have offered to do for me. Since then, he's turned out to be a difficult neighbor. He doesn't respond to emails, and so I simply wanted it to be a matter that my immediate neighbor was not opposed to what we're doing. He positively offered to do something exactly similar, but since then he's put a patio 3 feet from our front door. He's built...
Okay, we're not dealing with his application, we're dealing with yours. I just wanted to find out how you thought it was appropriate to attach an approval letter that, you know, came out, it was from 5 years ago, from a completely different application. How you thought it was appropriate to attach that sort of microfiche-looking letters back from 2013 to have submitted this together with your new application.
He's a difficult customer. He asked me to support an expansion of his GFI, and I wrote in support of him. We have termites all through the roof. Our roof has just been ripped off before winter, and I usually fail to get any response from Sean to any of the many emails I sent him. So,
okay. Anyway, just because someone doesn't answer doesn't give you the right, in my humble opinion, to attach a letter and say, Sean Freeman, a registered architect, of these 2 older emails, puts him on record from our last application as being in favor of 2.5 stories on the east end, as we now proposed. So much that he offered to design it for me. Like, I'm just telling you, I've been doing this a long time, and this is, to me, rather disingenuous and outrageous to attach a letter. So much that I was thinking I shouldn't participate in this application. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, do you want to recuse yourself?
No, I'm fine. unless the applicant would like me to recuse myself from this application. Actually, you know what? I will recuse myself. Thank you. Go take a break.
So, in my instructions, it says Mr. Freeman is in support. Mr. Freeman wrote a letter, said he's not in support. We have an explanation from Mr. Whistler. I think we should proceed now with your presentation.
My name is Gloria Apostolou. I'm the architect and agent for the owner. We have since obtained 2 letters of support that are signed, addressed by neighbors, and I have 4 copies. I can give 3 copies. The other thing I have 3 sets of are rendered views of the proposal. I know your binders are not in color, as myself. So there are 2 letters of support.
Thank you. Are these, if you're going to refer to these drawings, do they differ in any way from what's in our agenda?
They're just formatted to be on a bigger page. So
But they're basically the same drawings?
Their color, we have many shadow studies.
Okay. If anything's different, as you proceed, we need to know because if they go into the...
I would like to submit this in case this exact view is not submitted already.
So we have 2 letters of support, one from 765 Palmerston Avenue and one from 714 Palmerston Avenue.
Yes, 765 Palmerston Avenue was the previous owner of 59 Barton.
Right.
So her letter of support is really nice to hear that she supports the density, the height that's being proposed.
Just looking for the location of the addresses on the map. My map isn't that.
Do you know where 765 is on the city map?
It's on the northeast corner of, I think, of the school. It's just opposite the school. Yeah.
Oh, I see. And you said that was the prior owner of this house?
Yes. All right, we are proposing to build a 3rd floor addition that is 40.2 meters squared over the 2-story mass of the existing house.
Where is Mr. Freeman's? This is a semi-detached property, I understand. Where is Mr. Freeman's property?
I can put this on and show you.
Oh,
61 Barton is Mr. Freeman. At the corner. And our 1-story portion abuts onto his. The 2-story portion is where it's shown in black. Yes, that's right.
And what there's a green space behind 61 Barton or some sort of buffer?
That's a 2-story, that's a deck. That's a 2-story, a 2nd floor deck.
So here on this render, it's 1 story as well. What 2 1 stories basically mean?
61 Barton is 2 stories tall.
Doesn't have a 1-story addition off the back?
And it's, sorry, yes, the addition at the back.
2 1 stories basically.
That's right. They touch. The second,
I understood it and saw it, but I just want to make
Two
sure I
story,
was aware.
1-story, and 3-story.
yes.
Yeah.
It's an unusual lot. It's hard to.
Unique.
That's right. So we do meet on the main floor. The purpose of our addition is to create a 3rd bedroom. It is currently a 2-bedroom home. And the owners are living here. They would like to stay for the rest of their days in this house. The total square footage of the proposed house is 197 square meters, which is very typical in this neighborhood. We have summarized some of the densities and FSIs in the neighborhood. This is a very unique lot. It was created in 1998 when it was severed from 61 Barton. There is no property associated with this lot. It was built up to the property setbacks on all four sides. On one side, it's abutting 61 Barton. The other sides, the existing main floor was a series of garages built completely to the edges of the property. It is very unique. The property it is most similar to is 61 Barton. The FSI for 61 Barton is 2.33. We are asking for 1.9. Yes. Yes, FSI. So, and I'm afraid I don't have that in your file. I would like to submit it for the records. I just have one up for. The reason we cannot comply with the zoning bylaws for rear yard setback, floor area, and height is because there is no land in which to grow. This house has no basement in which they could add a bedroom. There is no space to expand to the side or the rear yards, as one would do on a typical lot. The only direction they could grow is up, and we are respecting the height of the three-story homes in the neighborhood. We are minimizing the footprint of the addition by setting in the usable floor space as a dormer. It's not built out to the full extent of the second floor below. And we are only adding windows to the street. We are bound by Barton Street to the north. There's a laneway to the east. And we don't have any windows looking out onto the neighbors' properties on the south.
Can you not extend the second floor along the?
That was the proposal that was turned down at the OMB. They felt the distribution of mass was better, pushed to the one edge of the lot and not evenly distributed all over. So that was the suggestion that was made at the OMB, that they would approve a smaller addition towards the east end of the lot. And that is when Sean Freeman said that, yes, I would suggest you do something to the east end of the lot and I can design it for you, which is the only relevance of that letter in relation to the OMB's suggestion that we build on the east end of the lot.
You mentioned that you're respecting the three-story character. Can you go back to this drawing?
Yes. That's correct. 61 Barton is a two-story house. We've put the TRE for top of roof elevation. The houses with the red roofs are 3 stories, and they are slightly taller than our proposed third floor. Yes, that's right. So we have deliberately tried to disguise the third floor as a typical attic enclosure. So on the site plan, I'll just put this up. You can see the shaded area is the floor area of the third floor, and it's trying to step in from the property line on all sides, whereas the second floor and main floor go to zero setbacks.
You negotiated that in part with planning department, or?
We had always
Responded to, they're basically saying that by using that roof form, you've actually mitigated any kind of height problems with the community, right?
That's right. So we have had many conversations with Robert Orsini, the planner. He went to the site, he walked down the laneways, the streets, all of that. His conclusion was we had always had it stepped in. I think we had stepped it in a few more centimeters, inches from what we had proposed before. The dormers on either side we've lowered at the lower peaks. The sides facing north and south were lowered by his recommendation. We fully supported it.
Thank you. Let us hear from the neighbors.
Great.
Thank you. One of you ladies going to speak? Pardon? All right, you're not going to rehash the same issue? All right, please come forward.
Hello, I'm Joan McCallum, and I live at 791 Euclid, and so I'm one of the neighbors who wrote in to object. The architect has already told you the history of this building.
Could you speak into the microphone?
All right, sorry,
Better.
I'm very small. The architect has already told you the history of the building and the fact that it is located right on the lot line to the adjacent gardens. I just want to read to you part of the decisions from the OMB when a full second floor was sought. And it said, the applicant's addition would run the entire length of a single-story dwelling, creating a defined structural end of the larger rear yard environment that runs south from Barton to London. The impact, this is important, the impact of neighbors to the south would be more than minor. For the most affected neighbors, the impact is not minor and must be seen as adverse. Moreover, this is not the type of development one would expect to see in such a stable neighborhood. Building upward from zero lot line conditions with no rear yard or side yard transitions cannot be said to be minor.
That's terrible. Yeah, you don't like. That's your name, please.
Yes, it's Leah Steinberg, and I live at 797 Euclid Avenue. All right, I have some pictures that will make that a little bit clearer. So thank you for having us here. I'd like to sort of talk about two main issues. The first is the impact of the variance on us and on the neighbors to the south of the house. And also then, if there's time, on the setting of the neighborhood and the kind of building that it is. I think the photos that I have will speak to the impact and might help explain the OMB's decision.
On the overhead.
think the impact is hard to appreciate from the drawings and the applications. This is the view from our kitchen, and the issue here is, unfortunately...
Could you tell us where this 59 Barton is in this picture?
Sure. So, okay. So, sorry, this is 59 Barton. This is the south side of the one story. It goes back to the alleyway behind. These are our garages. So this is my backyard, or our backyard.
So the proposal to put an extra
is to
floor
go up on
garages
top of
are,
this.
Where the garages are, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
that's right. So the OMB originally, the original application was to have this extend all the way, which would, it felt very impactful, and the OMB agreed with that. So they got permission to restrict it to the back. And really in our view, the area stays the same by going up, but you can see from every window in our house, this is now a pretty significant view. Our yards are very small. And so imagining a third floor above here, I appreciate that it's not exactly a flat roof, but the dormers are pretty significant. The dormers, I feel bad. I mean, I do appreciate that they've tried hard to make it disappear, but it's really quite, it's going to create kind of a tower-like presence over our yard and all.
That's the existing two-story.
This is the existing two-story.
Talking about another floor on top of
Correct.
that.
Correct. It's a real presence in our home from every single view facing this way. And the thing that's difficult, and I think the thing that the city planners don't see, is nobody sees it from this side of our property, except us every day. And I want them to have a good space, and we've managed with the second floor. It's there. We accepted it. It's obviously still very much in our space, but I think a third floor is really quite outside what would be in keeping with the view. The thing is,
Doesn't throw shadows on your yard?
Doesn't. The sun is on the other side, so
Yeah.
it's more of a kind of feeling somewhat quite claustrophobic from our home. This is just another view of it from the backyard. So, that's what's in existence. The thought of having a third story is quite dramatic. I'm going to show you, sorry, I left them over here. This is the shadow view, the shadow study from the applicant, and again, this is from Barton Street, so you don't actually get a sense of the impact for the neighbors. But so this is the proposed addition, the third story, and in the shadow study, what is frustrating for me is that it makes, because of the perspective, it makes it seem like it's in keeping with all these other buildings. This is the second story. I'll show you the actual picture. And this is a sloped third story. This is 61 Barton, 61 Barton, and this is our space here. The actual picture of what it looks like from Barton is this. So it doesn't line up. So this is the second floor. It's not even in view, even though I stepped back as far as I could. It's not even in view with the peaked roof third floors, which are way over here. It's going to take, it's going to be up here. This peaked roof, which in the study, in the shadow study, looks much, much different. This is a really small attic. So it almost disappears, whereas, and so I was struck because I think from this, it looks like it just fits. It really does look, you know, like it fits not too well, but it just doesn't represent what I think it will look like in terms of the structure in this space.
Can I clarify, the OMB indicated that moving the former two-story addition further west
Yeah.
would be an intrusion into your garden space. So basically, they were giving your garden space some priority and saying that there'd be overview. So the two-story was moved further to the east. As I'm reading what you're saying, I hear you say that there's no way that you could put a third story on this building that would in fact not negatively impede your property. So you're opposed totally to the third story. Monkeying around with it.
Yeah,
but it isn't going to change things.
I think that's right. I've thought about that long and hard because I don't like being in opposition. I have approved other.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to get a sense of where you stood on the issue.
Thank you. Thank you. The other, I don't know if this is appropriate in this context, but the new, let me find another picture, the new zoning for laneway housing. I don't find that picture. Oh, there it is. Let's stop. This is taken from the alleyway behind. And so with the new laneway proposals, it's possible that our properties could build a second floor here, which, you know, that would be reasonable. But what they're actually asking for is a third floor. So if you think about it in sort of laneway housing, it's well above what even the newest zoning would allow. So I think that also speaks to the fact that that it's really impactful.
Do you have a third story?
We have a third story that faces, it's in a peaked roof, it's a dormer and a peaked roof that faces Euclid. Yeah.
So I think we've allowed you.
Okay, sorry, I was just going to.
More time than.
Thank you. I was just going to conclude that when the OMB made its decision, they actually stated in the decision that if the application to sever, so this is back in the application to sever the property, the OMB stated that if that application at the time had included any second story, they would have really struggled with it because they even knew at the time that severing that created a structure that couldn't really be built up without a lot of impact. So that was actually, even in the severance, it became, everybody knew that it was going to be a difficult property to develop upwards, and I'm sorry that that's the case. Nothing has changed since then. Thank you.
Right, thank you. All right. Applicant, please come forward. How many square feet is the existing house now?
So I'm going to try to do this.
Yes, it's on the side.
The existing floor area is roughly 1,500
Square feet?
square feet,
And how much are you adding in square footage?
400 square meters.
Square meters?
Square feet, sorry.
Feet. So
400
you're
square
gonna be
feet.
short of 1,900 square feet.
That's right.
How many, and Mr. Whistler and Mrs. Whistler live there? Do you have any children? Do you have anybody else living with you?
We have two children who now we have grandchildren, and my parents visit as well from England, and my wife retired in November. We both need a home office, and we can't go into the basement. This is the only place we can expand.
What did you say about your wife? She passed away. Your wife died? And
No, she was here, but she had to go. She retired in November.
Oh, retired.
So we both work from home.
Thank you.
Both need a home office.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a basement.
It has no basement. It has no storage outside the property.
So, as they said at the OMB, you're very limited as to your options for redevelopment.
We are, and that one statement by Mr. Rossi was saying, I have to turn it down because it is too much. You're asking along next to the neighbor behind, not this neighbor, but one further away. But everything else he said was, everything else is fine in every other way. It's just we don't want you to do it the full width on Barton because it makes it too big above. Both my neighbors to the south knew it had been severed when they bought their houses, and that's why we were suggesting I changed my plans and moved them to the east end, and that's what we're planning again, to just add a room on the east end, and eventually it's all designed so you can have wheelchair access, and it's at grade. Because it's on slab, it's at grade. So there's no 7 steps, like my neighbors on Euclid, to the first floor with the basement. So you can go in, and there's a shower on the ground floor. When my mother comes, you can already use it wheelchair friendly. Eventually, and I'm used to this with my parents being 89, we can have a carer on the top floor and still be on the ground floor. It simply makes it more flexible when the grandchildren come to stay. My daughter-in-law and son both work full-time. They can stay, and my mother can stay if she's visiting from England on the ground floor.
Thank you. Do you have anything further to say, Ms.?
I wanted to, thank you. I wanted to also mention that this is such a unique property. It is not like the houses around it. The statistics are skewed as a result. But if it is the intent of the official plan also to reinforce the uniqueness of the neighborhood, this is definitely a characteristic of the neighborhood. It has existed for over 100 years. It is known as the garage house. It stands out from the rest of the houses, and I believe that it's a special, unique set of circumstances that we are having these statistics. We would love to provide greater setbacks and less lot density if we could.
Thank you.
I would like to add one thing. I've never lived in a house where we get so many of our neighbors on the sidewalk who are 13 feet away, cars driving by, rolling down the window saying, cool house. And we are in the neighborhood. We're not hiding from the neighborhood. People come in, they wander around the house. We are on the street, on grade level. It's unique, and it's why people like Palmerston Square area.
It was a transformation.
It's not Euclid. Barton is completely unlike Euclid.
And it was a transformation of a series of garages. So it's at grade, it's no land in front of it, so it very much has a street presence.
Right. Thank you.
I think we've made the point.
I see this as something that we should be able to accommodate in our city. And it doesn't seem to me that it's going to present a real problem to the neighbor on Euclid. And it's not a big house. It's not going to be a big house. It's just going to be large enough to accommodate Mr. and Mrs. Whistler's needs. So I would be in favor of approval of this application. Do we have any other questions? No. We have a motion?
We don't have any windows on the other side. I'm just looking for the other. There's no overlook created.
Oh, it's a little teeny
Is there one window? I'm trying to
and
find
it's noted as being treated.
Where is that?
In a bedroom. And
right, there's, yep.
There's no windows on this side. Yeah, you're talking about this side here.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there is another, there's another drawing I thought that showed a small window that is obscured.
That's correct.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
East elevation, obscured glass, okay.
There's no overlap.
Yeah.
It's for air circulation because of the noise from the street.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
You want a copy of this? Have you seen the planning conditions and have any concerns? Okay. So this is, I'm going to bring a motion forward at this point. I think this is a challenging application and challenging site to work with. So I give you credit for what you've come up with in my view, which I think is probably as sensitive as you're going to get for building on this particular site. One of my concerns about this property is, of course, the density of it, but you've pointed out, which I didn't realize, the density of the neighboring property at 61 Barton is in fact 2.33, which I was kind of gobsmacked to hear that, but, and you've shown that there's other densities in this neighborhood which are comparable in the vicinity. In my view, this is a very unique property, you've pointed that out, and you've been, in my view, very sensitive in terms of where you've put the extra addition and density, and you've made efforts to make it peaked with dormers, and I think, given the staff report as well, and the conditions that the staff planning report have recommended, I think will actually help in terms of any impact on the neighbors. So my motion is going to be for approval of the application, subject to the conditions set out in the planning report, and I don't think we have any other conditions. And those conditions are that the third-story addition be constructed substantially in accordance with the plans received by the Committee of Adjustment on November 19th, and the roof area over the one-story portion shall not be occupied as a terrace. So that's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with my colleague that it's a very challenging site, and as the chairman of the OMB indicated, at the time of severance, they created a problem. There is no land to work with. You've only the opportunity to go vertically. In going vertically, if you put it here, there's a problem. If you put it there, it's a problem. I think the board was correct in suggesting that you go in the location you're proposing to go. And my compliments to the architect for attempting to work with the roof form to try and reduce the impact, notwithstanding. There is going to be some impact, and I think that that is unfortunate. I'd like to, at this point, compliment both presenters for the information you brought to the board. It was very helpful. You provided information that I didn't have, and it helped me with understanding the application. I am going to support the motion for approval. I'm seconding it, but I do believe that the project wouldn't be here were it not for the sensitivity of a particular client and a particular architectural consultant to try and address, to the best of their abilities, not 100%, but to the best of their abilities, the concerns that you've raised. So I'm seconding the motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? You have your approval. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
very much. Oh, yes. Thank you. Number 6, 332 Russell Hill Road. Purpose of this application is to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling containing an integral garage in front and rear ground floor decks. Before us on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have staff report from engineering and urban forestry. We have opposition from 305, 311, 330, 307, 328, Russell Hill Road, and from the Forest Hill Homeowners Association. Mr. Rose. Yeah,
If
can you
you're in
come sit up
opposition,
here?
You should come up to the front.
So I'm Denise, I'm from the city councilor's, from Councillor Josh Matlow's office, and the councillor wants to direct a deferral to give everyone an opportunity to chat about this. It sounds like we almost got to a good place prior to.
So Mr. Matlow is requesting
A
a
deferral,
deferral?
yes.
He's not directing us to
Sorry,
defer it, is he?
my apologies.
Okay.
I have a question relative to that, and it's a
Yes.
question of staff. This is one of very few applications where there are no floor plans. And I personally, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I use those floor plans to determine whether or not a proposal has a negative impact on abutting uses. There are no floor plans in this particular submission, which places, from my perspective, places evaluation of it very much at risk. Is there not a requirement for floor plans for submission?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is a
Then why are
requirement
we
of our
doing the
application.
application?
Maybe perhaps Mr. Rose can explain why he files
I'd
this.
like to add to that. I do find the floor plans as well very critical in terms of what the spaces are being used for, overlook impact.
I can give
and
you
so-
a set of floor plans right now. Here's the reason that we have not recently been submitting floor plans at the City of Toronto, is that it's an infringement on my client's privacy. These floor plans are now available for anyone to see on the internet. Case in point is Drake's home, which went viral across the city and the country. CBC posted them. It's absolutely terrible that anyone, and I can tell you that there are builders, planners, and other architects who come to me with plans they get off the city website, they want me to copy. It's not right. I have no problem with the committee having them, but the treasurer secretary will not allow you to have them without posting them online. And my clients have asked me not to post them online. It's absolutely awful. Imagine I have a client north of the city, the same thing happened. Single woman, very wealthy, and her plans were on the internet for everyone to see. She was mortified.
Okay, the concern that I have, we receive our agendas Friday night. We spend an immense amount of time on the weekend going through them. We walk into a briefing an hour before the hearing, and we are given piles of new information. We cannot get through it all. Receiving your plans the day of the meeting is not going to work. You need to work out some system for us seeing the plans, or I can't vote on your applications. Let me finish.
Okay.
In some cases, where you enter the building and how you get out of the building and where the overviews are, they're critical issues for determining whether or not there are impositions on adjacent properties and whether or not they're in keeping with the character of particular areas. And if you're going to argue you don't want to give us plans, then don't give them to us. But I will tell you, it's going to jeopardize my ability to evaluate your application. You can continue. If it's a requirement, I don't know why it's not being enforced. If I don't get plans, I can't evaluate, and so my vote is going to be very questionable at that.
Okay, so if you allow me, indulge me with this. So all the windows and doors are there for you to see. You are here, the Committee of Adjustment is here to look at planning issues. Whether I have 5 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms shouldn't matter. You're here to judge.
The last issue had the floor plans in the last application were a major determinant on how it related to adjacent properties and what the use was on the other side of the window. I'm not going to argue the issue. I believe that the city is correct in requiring you to submit.
I agree with you.
If you don't want to submit plans, I'm just making a point that you are jeopardizing my evaluation of your application.
I agree with you 100%. However, the committee, and Anita knows this, that she did accept them, her committee staff accept them. I've been doing it for quite a long time. North York, Etobicoke, Scarborough has no problem with it. I've told her, let me finish. I've told her I have no problem you having them in the file for the committee members. What my clients have a problem with, and frankly me as an architect, all these designs are my copyright. And I know for a fact, because people come to me and have architect's plans, and it's absolutely, and I've got the OAA who is going to be fighting this. To not allow it to go onto the internet. It's a real infringement on my
Staff, is there
copyright.
some compromise whereby we get the plans, but they're not posted on the on the internet.
No, through you, Mr. Chair.
Because
This is a
Mr.
public,
Rose has-
right, so this is a public process on our application forms. It says anything that is submitted is public information. When we went to e-service, all information is posted to it's not the internet, it's a site on the internet. It's the Application Information Center. You can't search by address, you can't search by name. You have to know specifically the property.
You can search by address.
On the AIC, not on the internet.
So can I
If I typed in on Google the address of an application, it would not produce the information that's on the AIC.
So.
Which doesn't mean that somebody could not go to the AIC. Unfortunately, the application requirements are not made up by me. They are city requirements. We're asked to collect the information. We've been getting pushback from certain applicants and have reached the point where we're letting you decide whether or not they're acceptable for your purposes.
And just on that, I'm just sorry.
Further, if the committee requires us to enforce the application requirements, then we will, and the result will be that applications will be deemed incomplete and they won't be accepted.
Just along that vein, in terms of privacy and what is available and what isn't, I don't know the answer to this, but I suspect if somebody was going to do a freedom of information request on the property, generally that at the building stage, when your plans are submitted with the building department, those would be made available. So I think.
Not on the internet.
No, but if somebody wants
So-
the information, and I'm not saying those plans are covered by, they're private.
They are private. You have to be an owner to see them. You have to be the
That's a
owner of the
debate. I
property
don't
to see them.
know.
I do know that.
But I'm saying that somebody could get access to those plans likely in any event, so whether
they
or
can't.
not they're a
So-
privacy issue, I question that.
So to get a copy of plans, you have to be the owner, registered owner, and prove that. You may be able to come down and view them. You cannot get them. My suggestion to the committee was, I gave several. Give you the plans, the committee members, put them in your agenda, no problem with that. The old system of if you wanted to come view the file, you were more than welcome to come down. You were not allowed to take copies. You were allowed to view anything in the file. There's nothing wrong with that. But to make it accessible to people who abuse it on the internet is an infringement of my copyright and my client's privacy.
Just as an added, through routine disclosure of city planning files, somebody comes and asks for a copy of what's in the file, they get it. Plans, everything. They can either get it through email, so whether it's on the AIC or somebody phones me and says, can I see that, they will be sent.
I was not aware of that. My understanding through the OA was that that's against the law, but
If they were made available to us, they would be available to somebody asking.
Everything you ask for, you got to pay for, they got to make a decision.
Well, I raise it only because
I agree with you.
I'm here to try as best I can with my colleagues to adjudicate applications and render really good decisions.
Yeah.
This is a huge impediment to me in rendering a good decision. I draw that to your attention.
I
didn't mean
don't
to draw
disagree with you.
To your attention, but I did want to indicate that,
Would you like a set now?
no, it's too late.
Okay,
Been up
so-
all night. I don't need another.
No, it's fair. So, but if you wanted to look at during the presentation. So the other point to that is, if you're only looking at planning evidence, what's inside the house doesn't have an impact on the neighborhood. That's the only argument. I totally agree with you, but I and my clients have a problem, and that's what I was requested. And the OA is going to fight this, because it is an infringement on our copyright. There's so many solutions to this problem, but the city doesn't want to act on it at this point.
In fairness, we're seeing that it is labeled living room, dining room, kitchen space, floor, bedrooms, floor. Sometimes I like to know if a outdoor terrace is off a common area, off a bedroom. But other than that, I don't think there's any great magic. You have a family room, you have a kitchen, a dining room,
That was done through direction of staff, what we needed at a minimum to put on there.
In terms of making planning decisions, unless we have a specific question, is this terrace off a common area, is it off a bedroom? I am not of the same opinion that we need to see the entire inside layout of the homes, because there are privacy concerns. The question of what's deemed a complete application and what the Architects Association, I think that's a higher level issue
Yes.
that has to be dealt with.
I would agree with Mr. Clark, but I suppose this problem has been created by the internet.
100%.
All
It's
kinds
appalling.
of problems that are created by the internet that we haven't caught up with yet.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole issue about defamation on the internet.
And it's stealing my intellectual property. And people come to my office with other architects' drawings. Copy this. I say no. But it's a problem. And I don't know what the solution is. I've given some solutions. I wish, you know, I don't see any reason why you as a committee member can't have an extra set. Yeah.
Dealt with the issue. The issue before us now is whether or not there should be a deferral. There's been a requested deferral.
No.
And so are you in agreement with the deferral?
Absolutely not. The fact that it takes 6 months to get a hearing, and it's punitive to my client.
And the reason for the deferral, sorry, was to allow for discussions that haven't taken place? The reason I'm asking is in his defense, Mr. Rose normally does, in all other applications, perhaps this is an exception, has negotiated and talked to and had discussion with virtually everybody that might be affected. So is there some specific group that you believe weren't involved in that discussion, or is there some specific?
Well,
I'm surprised at the, not, you know, I'm open to it, but particularly on this, well, tell me why.
So there's discussion happening right now. This whole morning there was discussion happening, and it sounds
Where?
like they're just outside, just outside
Mr.
the
Rose and some.
and some of the residents here were having a discussion, and it sounds like they can get to a good place. There is a lot of objection on the street, but it sounds like they can get to a good place. But they just need a bit more time, and there will need to be revisions. So the councillor, a number of people aren't here, have had objections, weren't able to work it out, and we would just like some time for everyone to be able to sit down. I think we can get to a good place. The neighbors here support, I think, yes, support a deferral? Yes, to sit down and talk. So I think we almost got there with the applicant. But the long timeline is.
As far as you're aware.
Yeah.
Are these the only discussions that have been conducted just this morning?
This is the, I think for you to retain a planner, this was the first opportunity that you had, because you only learned about it about a week ago, I think. There were discussions, so Lauren did tell me that he did reach out to some other neighbors about a week ago, and he did reach out to our office as well about a week ago. However, I think the key discussion with the neighbor next door, who's the most impacted, didn't happen until this morning. So.
The first time a discussion ever happened about the new house?
Could
There have
clarify.
been discussions for the past few days.
Few days, yeah.
Okay, so we should, I just want clarification of the
Yeah.
reason. So can, sorry, Mr. Chairman, what do they think of it?
So perhaps
Maybe you
come
can.
forward and just come up to the podium, please. Yeah, yes.
And I just want to note, it sounds like this can get resolved quite quickly, like probably in a couple of weeks for resubmission. So anyway, that's.
Can't bring it back that
Just to
quickly.
clarify, that doesn't mean it'll be back here in a couple of weeks.
I know that, and that's the issue why the applicant doesn't want a deferral. So we understand that.
Good morning. My name is David Morse. I am with Bousfield's Planning Consultants, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of 330 Russell Hill Road, Jan and Robert.
Last name?
Yes, Jan Harkness and Robert Samek.
We have their letter.
We have a letter.
So they've submitted a letter of opposition. They have several items on that letter that they're concerned with. I'm aware that there have been 6 other letters that have been submitted, including the Homeowners Association for Forest Hill. I would welcome the idea, and I've spoken with my client, of further discussions with respect to changes to the proposal. In its current form of the application, I do have a submission, but to speak to for the Planning Act tests.
To the deferral at this point.
Okay. So I just wanted to give Mr. Rose his 5 minutes. It didn't sound like just for the deferral. Okay, so I would agree with the deferral on the basis.
You've had discussions with Mr. Rose outside this morning, and you have not been able to resolve your client's problems.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you?
We have had discussions this morning. Yes.
Could you clarify, without being detailed, what kinds of concerns they are? I mean, are we talking about you don't like three-story houses, or you don't like where the building is, or can you clarify what kinds of issues you look at?
Yes, yeah. So the main concern for my clients especially, they're adjacent to the south, is privacy and overlook as a product of the rear deck. The excessive length of the house and depth of the house is the biggest concern here.
Okay.
And there are a couple reasons for that. Okay.
All right, but I understood from the application that the depth and the length is underground.
So the furthest depth of the house, which is going to be roughly 2 meters above grade, goes back 33.04 meters. The house is set back 5.5 meters before that.
And the portion you're talking about is an underground garage, but it has a deck on the top.
That's correct. And our biggest concern is, number one, the depth of the house, and also the raised terrace at the back as a product of the underground garage, and specifically because there could be overlook issues should somebody stand at the south end of that deck. They could look directly into the rear windows of the residents of 330 Russell Hill Road. We would like to have discussions about certain mitigation measures or potentially pulling back that deck or bringing it down to grade, because I think those would alleviate a lot of the problems.
Okay, I didn't want to get into the.
Sure.
I just wanted a general sense of how big those changes were. Thank you, that's.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could hear from Mr.
Sure.
Rose now.
In principle, I am 100% on side with a 1-month deferral. Unfortunately, that can't happen because it's 6 months to get a hearing, plus we would have to revise the drawings, agree on them, and then apply again. So it's punitive. So for that reason, my client is fully aware of the consequences of not deferring, as are they. I will say that I think we're very close to an agreement. So if we were to win today, we know they have 20 days to appeal, and if we don't satisfy their concerns, which I'm very confident we can.
Is this the only opposition today?
Other than the letters that you have?
So what happens if we hold this to the end of our day?
No, there's people are out of town. Like, you can speak. I can't speak to that.
I think Rob is out of town. I'm not sure if he's available to make that decision today. I think we just need enough time to review those changes and to see if they're adequate or they're limiting the impact on my client's property.
I mean, it's a problem with scheduling is the real issue. In North York, I would agree to it. In Scarborough, I'd agree to it. In Etobicoke, it's a problem here. It's very punitive.
Chairman, I think the difficulty is, the reason I asked for the general concern, the best we could do here, short of trying to redesign Mr. Rose's house, which we're not going to do.
There are some revisions.
Is to place barriers between the terrace. It isn't even as simple as it is in some cases of suggesting the terrace be set back from the common property line because the terrace is in fact also a garage. The most that this committee, in my view, would be able to do, were it to approve it conditionally, would be to put a barrier of some sort across one end of the terrace, and I'm not sure that that's going to be helpful.
We agree to it. We've already agreed to it.
Okay.
So
I'm just trying to figure out if the
let us-
deferral makes any sense.
Let us deal with the issue of deferral. Is there, anybody has any further questions, or do we have a motion for or against the deferral? my concern with the deferral is that we're holding up the owner over a couple issues that can probably, it sounds to me like they can be resolved, and with all due respect to the neighbors, and I get this in my law practice, you've got to come to these hearings with somebody who has authority to agree or not agree. So I would oppose the motion, if there's a motion for deferral. I would oppose the deferral because it's, as Mr. Rose says, it's punitive, and the neighbor did not come with the authority to agree.
Yeah, I agree there's a hardship unless perhaps staff can say, we can schedule it now on anticipation it's going to be resolved within a month, but if that's not permitted, it's a very good point that, if this whole process gets delayed and the applicant and agent prefer to proceed, I believe that's their right. If it results in a refusal and they go to TLAB, that's up to them. And perhaps at that point, something can be worked out before it gets to TLAB. I don't know how long TLAB takes to get their items on the agenda, So I agree that with the chair that there is a hardship to the applicant, which is perhaps unfair, and they should be permitted to proceed should they wish to do so.
Would you make
at their peril?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the next available date, if you were willing to add additional workload to your next agenda on March 20th, that would require a notice to go out by the 28th of this month. It's already the 13th. Are you going to get plans revised by the end of next week and a zoning review?
Knowing who did the zoning review, I would say no, but if the councillor was willing to help with that, there's no question I can't guarantee that the neighbors all will agree.
After that, it's, that's...
You make your revisions and the chips fall, where
Deferrals
they go.
are, we allow everybody we say 3 months because we don't want things sitting around too long, and that we want to make sure people are acting in good faith because you've given them the opportunity. People can get that resolved. We will do our best to we don't want them hanging around any longer than they want to be hanging around.
Yeah.
But, applications are in early, and applicants are being told to talk to applicants or neighbors long before we even send our notices out, so.
Yeah. I know in the old days, we used to sometimes have it adjourned to a date specific.
Right.
But I guess
Want to
workload,
up
that's
your
not.
agenda loads, I'd be happy to put more on.
In my view, while I agree with you, a deferral may be a hardship, I also feel that if they're so close to coming to a resolution, and no matter which way this gets decided, I don't know what's going to happen, somebody may appeal, which is going to add expense and time on something in any event.
The other option would be that Mr. Rose could file a zoning waiver as opposed to a zoning review if you're comfortable doing that.
Never file a zoning waiver. It's not worth the risk.
You're not comfortable.
So what I can say, my fear is, I think the people here are negotiating good faith. There's a gentleman who did not negotiate in good faith with me, was a little bit disingenuous with me, and I fear his agenda may be different. I have full faith in no, the gentleman 2 doors south, beside them, was a little bit disingenuous with me, and I worry we may resolve with them, but they're not here. So I worry if it would be, I can do the work. I don't know that I can get a zoning review. I think the council could help in that, but I don't think that these people will be hard to accommodate. I don't know about the other people.
The other one is that's the 5-page single-spaced footnoted letter.
Oh, the one with the...
I like the footnote.
The next available date after March 20th would be May 1st.
Wait.
I'm quickly going through the letters of objection again. The most common concern, which I guess also affects you as well, is the length of the building. I don't anticipate, even with the deferral, that the length of the building would substantially introduced.
It will be, today.
Will be, oh, okay. You just changed my mind.
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if in fact, I agree with my colleague that if they're close and if we can find a solution, it's a good idea to do a deferral. But I do believe that the applicant here should be afforded some courtesy in terms of trying to get this back on as fast as agenda as possible. So if we could get some support from the area councillor to help in that way, and Anita has already indicated that she would try and bring the matter back as quickly as possible based on new information and a resolution. I'm going to move a deferral to the next. I'm going to move a deferral, and on the understanding that Anita's going to do her best to bring it back as fast as possible. I don't want to put a date in because we can't put a date in because there are variables.
You have a target.
It's dependent on getting, well, it's depending everybody negotiating in good faith and not trying to hold.
No, it's not going to happen with the city.
Then taking this revised version and getting it in the process as quickly as possible.
I don't think.
And the applicant himself said he thinks they're very close.
Yeah, with this guy, so if you come back with something, and then if the other neighbor 2 doors down doesn't agree, well, you come and you present, and the committee will make a decision.
So
Obviously, these
can I
people
speak?
are the most directly affected.
So if I can speak, my problem is, and it's not Anita's fault, don't get me wrong. It's, so I have to get consensus, and the neighbor, the gentleman who lives next door is away. The neighbor 2 doors away is not back till March 3rd, apparently. The chances of them all agreeing on that are slim. Then I have to revise the drawings, then I have to get a zoning review, then I have to get to Anita with a letter saying what the changes are. It's not going to happen. What was the date, the drop dead date you had for March? I'm okay with that March date, but I just don't. No. So it's the May 1st is the one that's more realistic, and that's the one that's punitive. And there's no guarantee it's May 28th.
In August, yeah.
You've got to do something by February 28th for Anita to send out the sign. So that's even worse.
And he's not back until March 3rd.
Wow. So
So
do
this
we?
neighbor here is not back to March?
No, the neighbor 2 doors away who I'm worried about will cause some problems. What's that? He did respond to one email to me, but he didn't want to talk.
And what is the date? So are we setting it for a date? We're not allowed to do that?
I didn't put a date.
As soon as possible. Yeah. Is what the motion is.
And you know, if it's May 1st, it's certainly better than August 1st, so.
So the last possible date would be May 1st? So my client's saying that's $20,000 worth of mortgage. They'd rather go to TLAB. The same price. Could be more. That's.
I'm going to support the motion for deferral. I think it's better to have the neighbors who are almost at a resolution, give them an opportunity to do that.
And if you can't reach everybody, you can't reach everybody. You can only do what you can do.
No, I will get drawings in for February 28th, no matter where we're at. Right. Okay, well, then you're talking about doing it tomorrow. Then this is absurd. Like, so the date just moved. Oh. It's not her fault.
Okay.
Move second. All in favor of the motion? All opposed?
Motion carries.
Can't vote.
I just think.
Wait a second.
So you have a deferral.
Thank you.
I think so. Yes, we stand adjourned.
What's the revision in mind now?